Hello, this is Joseph Carlson, and this is episode 105 of Gaming with Grief, and I'm calling this episode Breath of the Wild Final Review. And just to remind you guys that this podcast will hit my website, www.gamingwithgrief.com, Monday morning at 7 a.m. Go there, leave a comment, let me know what you think of the show, or you can go to iTunes, subscribe to the podcast there, give me likes, stars, reviews, that kind of stuff. You can also go to the Google Play Store, subscribe to the podcast there, let me know what you think. I'm not a Google user, so do what you would normally do there to review the show. Also, you can go to gwgpodfellows@gmail.com, drop me an email, let me know what you think of the show there. Also, just let me know how I can improve, stuff like that. Or you can find me on Twitter at JustLittleJoe. So go there, say hello. I'll try to get better about promoting this. I always say that, but I mean it. Let me just get into the show. So if you guys remember a few episodes back, I did a review of Revival, which was a comic, and I finally got back to reviewing it and finishing it. So this is what I want to do with Breath of the Wild. I've done a lot of research, and as I'm doing the research, as it's coming in, I've taken notes. So instead of my brain getting scattershot and actually making a better podcast in general, I am doing everything in sections. So what I'll be going over in the first section is an art book a long time ago that I got. It's called the Breath of the Wild Creating a Champion. And it was published by Dark Horse Comics and Nintendo. And from what I could see from the registration inside, it was published on December 17th. December of 2017. It's 422 pages of art and history of Breath of the Wild. And let me say this much. I got it a long time ago. It was on sale. I really loved Breath of the Wild years ago, but of course, like I've gone over in the podcast before, my mother was very sick. I was in and out of playing it. According to my play clock on the Nintendo Switch, I got to 97 hours in the game, but I never finished it. So this is me actually finishing the game and giving you like my final review, impressions, feelings about everything, how I feel about the game. Obviously, I'm very nostalgic for it. I have a lot of nostalgia. Also, it brings the feels because of what I was going through in my life. And that's usually sometimes the best games. But to remove that from the game and just talk about how amazing I think this game is and how great it is. And so what I've done is I've done this research. I've looked at this art book that I bought a while ago. And I've also, Nintendo has made a series of what I can find so far, 3 videos where they interviewed the developers of the game and talked about different sections. Now, I'll get into that in the next section, but the reason why I brought up Revival at the beginning of this is what I did with Revival is I would do a review of a few volumes of Revival, the trade paperbacks, and then I would pause my recording, and then I would come back when I would do more of them. So there wouldn't be any music or any transitions. I would just say hello and get back into the next section and talk to you about what part I was reviewing or what volume I was reviewing. So I'm going to copy that for this review of Breath of the Wild. The first thing that is up is obviously this book, again, published by Dark Horse Comics and Nintendo, called The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Creating a Champion. And it is amazing. It's an art book, again, with 422 pages of art from the development team. And the last probably 20 or 30 pages is nothing but history, written history of a timeline of Hyrule, how it got to where they are in the Breath of the Wild history, and how each village shaped the future, past, things like, well, not the future, but the present, the past in the game, how you came to be where you are as Link in the game. And let me tell you something. It is amazing, but it also blows my mind that there's so much information there. They actually had to shrink the font size down to probably like an 8 or a 9 to get everything in there they wanted. And there's pages and maps and a timeline just in the back. But what I want to do is I want to go over things that really stuck out to me. Beautiful pieces of art that were in the front of the book, or just in general, in the book in general. So in the first like 50 pages, there's these sketches from like the Twitter promotional stuff they did for the game, and also the cover of like a lot of the like the official. I got the game digitally, but like the screen of the game when you load up the screen on your Switch, and also like if you buy the actual cartridge of the game, all that art is these beautiful paintings that they did in the beginning, where you get to see Link kind of looking over a vista or over a hill. He's climbing up the side of a mountain. It is amazing. It blows my mind. They spent so much time. And these are all just like concept sketches that they, some of them are sketches. Obviously, some of them are the official art they use to promote it, like I said, from Twitter and things like that. The biggest one, I didn't write the page down, but there's a sketch that turned into like more art, which was Link from the old games in kind of like this little bit of an older style, handing the Master Sword over to the new Link from Breath of the Wild. And this is great. They said they wanted to be a passing of the mantle. There's these developer notes in there you can read. I didn't read every note because, again, they shrunk the font and there's so much information, especially towards the back. But I was really just going through and trying to be affected by the art as I saw it, as it was coming through. And, that was amazing just in the beginning of the book. And so now I'm just going to mention some pages and some art that I saw that I really thought would stand out. If you have this book, follow along and let me know what you think, and write in and let me know what you think. If you're like, you mentioned, well, the first thing I'm going to mention is page 83. There's some rough designs of the 4 champions, and I thought these were great to kind of see them in these rough things of like, well, that champion doesn't look right, or who is that? Oh man, it's this person or whatever, it's Garuk or whatever. Write in and let me know, like, hey, that didn't do it for me. I didn't like that, but I really like the art on page 72. So yeah, let me know what you think. Also, I think just the rough design and to see these initial sketches, and they wrote a note in one of the sketches that said that basically what we did is we tried to, the designers, the artists would basically just have a sketchbook like any kind of artist would have. They'd sketch all these things about whatever, like whether it be a sword or whatever, and then they'd kind of refine it, and they bring it to more people, and then they kind of finalize it like, okay, so that's the look we want. Just keep iterating on this. So there's all these iterations of not only Link and Zelda, and again, the champions are on there, all these really cool things where you get to see everything in the infantile stages of development, which doesn't really get talked about, especially Nintendo. I know recently with the internet and stuff like that, I say like recently because it makes it sound like the internet is this new thing, but Nintendo is traditionally a very closed off company, and to see them just kind of open up a little bit and do a book like this, and I'll be talking about that in the next review I do, because they do these series of movies, which I mentioned, these like documentary. I think they're about 10 minutes a piece. I found 3 of them. I'll try to look online and see if there's any more, but it's stuff like that I really enjoy. One of the other pieces of art I really enjoyed was on page 98. There's the typical Hylians, the Desins of Hyrule, as it were, and they just do all these little sketches of like what the townspeople would look like, and everybody's got this unique look, and like they're carrying things, and it's like just really interesting to see them like, oh, here's what a normal shopkeep would look like, and here's what someone walking through town would look like, and they have these little notes there of like, his shoes are like this, and like all these little sketches, and it's pretty amazing. I also loved on page 144, there's a typical Korok, which, if you know, the Koroks are like these little woodland creatures, but just to see little rough designs of them, they did all these little rough designs, like probably 8 or 9, I think I counted, and it's just great to see these little things and like how they iterate on. Again, this is pretty fascinating, especially someone like me who can't even draw a stick figure. I think it's great. So there's that. Page 168 through 177. Now I'm a big nerd, guys. I like a lot of nerdy stuff. You know that. Obviously wouldn't be doing this weekly podcast, but I've talked a lot about D&D. You've heard me do some streams on here. Here's the deal, man. The pages, 168 through 177, that's almost 10 pages of them just drawing weapons for the game. So they're like, okay, so this is how this would look on Link here. They even have sketches of Link. Sometimes he's wearing something on his back. Here's how the Zora, where they're, here's a Zora weapon. Here's this, here's that. The following pages after that have to do with armor, and it's just so amazing to me. Again, what goes into this, how this is decided to be a final design, what decided to be a neutral design, something like that. Really great. Page 204, there's sketches, rough sketches of the enemies in the game, the Guardians. To me, that's amazing. They show a lot of the enemy factions. The sketches of Ganon are amazing. The Calamity Ganon, in all of his forms. They're in the beginning of the book, but I thought since I'm mentioning the enemies now, I should mention him. That's really cool. There's also on page 286, there's this steampunk lab you go to. I think there's an official name for it. It's a workshop. But anyway, you go there. Excuse me. But they show these little, it's, again, a rough sketch of something. And it isn't that I don't like any of these finished pieces. I think these are amazing because I do finally get to that when they show the paintings and things. But these rough sketches really show you the designs. And again, I like things kind of in their infantile. Excuse me. I've been talking a lot today. But the next thing I want to talk about is in the back, again, like I mentioned, there's this massive history section. They talk about how the chronology works out. They have photos. They talk about different villages and how they place in the world, kind of their thoughts and feelings, how they were able to defend Hyrule. They talk about the champions. And not only that, but at the last part of the book, past all the chronology and stuff like that, which I will read this someday. It's just the text is small. It's late when I'm recording this. But in the very back of the book, there's, I think, 4 letters from like the producers of the game. I'm not going to butcher their name. They're Japanese. I will probably have them next time because in the Nintendo videos, they interview them and they actually physically say their names. And so I'll have it then. But there's these 3 producers they interview for the games. And it's amazing to see them, talk about what went into the game, which again, we'll talk about more because I'll watch those videos and I'll talk to you more about that. But, check it out. It's probably on sale for like $20 on Amazon. Again, 400 pages. If you love art of any kind or like to study art, there's just pictures of Link climbing through the snow when he's covered with snow. His tunic looked different at a time. They weren't really going to use blue. They even said, they wanted to change up his garb. So in Breath of the Wild, he's wearing blue. Because they said, everybody figured green would be a given because he always wears green. But it wasn't any one person at the table saying, we should make this blue instead of green. It was them just coming to an organic decision, looking at art going, yeah, that's a good color. And if you notice, Zelda shares the same color that Link has. And they have this really interesting note about Link, which is weird because they always, Link has always been the silent protagonist for a long time. And this is developer's note in the corner basically says, Link basically is chosen by a family because he's a good warrior. He's very athletic, but he's also very stoic and he keeps everything kind of inside. That's why he doesn't speak much. But, he's a great athlete and he doesn't leave Princess Zelda's side. And so that's what makes him such a good warrior. And it also said something about the Master Sword choosing him. So that's pretty amazing. Anyway, I think that's going to end this section. I've rambled on enough. But if you love art again and, you want to see what went into making Breath of the Wild, or really any game, just to see the concept art from beginning stages to the final game, if you're playing Breath of the Wild, I definitely recommend checking it out. If you want, you could probably go to Amazon. I think there was a look inside feature of the book. So you can click on, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Creating a Champion, click on the look inside thing and you can just look at some of the art. Of course, it'll probably just be the beginning, but they want to give you kind of a feel for the rest of the book. But look at that and then, decide if it's something you want to get. Because of quarantine and everything, I have been working, but I was off a month when the whole COVID thing hit. And I've really been trying to do that thing that most gamers do is we buy a bunch of art books and then we don't look at them. I'm really trying to dig into them now and look into them. So with that being said, I'm going through this again and I'm going to look through, the history and things like that. And I'm really looking forward to it. So this will end this section. When I come back, again, there won't be any intro or any music in between, but I'll come back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch these 3 videos that Nintendo's produced. I watched them right when the game was released because that's about the time they released them. But I'm going to watch them again and take notes. And then I'm going to tell you about like what went into the world and things like that. And from their lips, a real interview of them about the process and things like that. And then finally, unless I pull in another resource. There might be one other resource I pull into, but maybe not. But the last thing is me actually finishing the game. I got very close to the end because everything that was going on with my mom, I stopped playing. But I do love the game. In fact, my boss started playing it a while ago, and he's like, man, I'm hooked. I can't stop playing this game. So that's basically what this is going to be. This is going to be a final kind of review. Maybe impression would be a better thing. My final impression of the game. I don't even know if that's right. I'll say impressions. I'll look back because I did talk about Breath of the Wild a few years ago on the podcast. So, but I don't want this to be definitive anyway. I mean, I believe GameSpot or somebody the other day just mentioned, hey, here's a bunch of other stuff we found in Breath of the Wild that no one else has found. So yeah, I'm going to be looking through that. So anyway, I'll talk to you guys soon. And again, I'll be reviewing the 3 videos that Nintendo put out talking about the development of the game. So I will see you guys then. Just kidding. It'll be in a couple seconds. Bye. So I'm back, and I've just completed watching it looks like the 4-part documentary series that Nintendo released. It looks like on March 14, 2017, about Breath of the Wild. They did a documentary series that they released. The game was released on March 3rd, 2017, so, a little bit after the game was released. It was a worldwide launch with the Switch. It also released on the Wii U on that date. But this, I'm going to do it exactly like I did. The concept art, I'm going to talk about kind of things that stuck out. Again, there was 4 parts. Each part was about 10 minutes. I think the last part was 7 or 8. But the first part was just called The Beginning, and how they started with the process. And the director was Hidemaru Fujibayashi. So I hope I didn't butcher that. But he was the director of the game, and they interviewed a lot of different people. The art director, Anuma, which is like the overall producer of the Zelda series, and he's been doing it for 20 years or 30 years at this point. But go watch those series. They're on YouTube if you want a more in-depth dive. I'm just going to go over the things that I thought was really interesting. So the director said that they wanted to really take a step back and try to connect with what made Zelda special in the first place. And so that they prototyped Breath of the Wild in 2D. And they showed footage from that in the documentary. And it basically just looks like an incredibly crisp version of the original Legend of Zelda that came out in 86, I think, on the NES. I think it's 86. That's the only date I didn't check. But whenever the original Legend of Zelda came out, they wanted to, again, kind of emulate that and take a step back and kind of look at that and use that as kind of a base. And so they prototyped it in 2D, and they were already starting to see some of the systems that went in place with the physics engine. If you would burn a tree, you could then push that tree, knock the tree down, push that into another tree. It would catch that tree on fire. All these kind of things that they wanted to test out. And they said it was incredibly exhilarating, they said, to see that start to take shape. And it led to this, like, quote-unquote domino. I'm using that. It was like a domino design type ability where, they're like, oh, if this touches this, and this will happen. If you don't know, I'll get into it more in my review, but in Breath of the Wild, you get a Sheikah Slate, which basically just looks like a Nintendo Switch, like an ancient version of a Switch. And you get these different abilities. You can create a bomb out of thin air that's on a timer. You throw the bomb, it explodes. Or you can use magnesis, which is basically a magnet. You can grab onto things and move them, if they're metal, drop them. It opens and closes doors. It does tons of stuff. You can do cryosis, which is like freezing. So you can freeze water to make steps. It's really interactive. And they said when they started designing these pieces into the game, what it did is it really opened up more possibilities. And it created this effect of like, oh yeah, well, why can't you just hold an arrowhead over a fire and then the arrowhead catches on fire and then you have a fire arrow? Things that we take for granted are simple. A lot of this has been said in open world games, that like, oh, we're going to go back to our roots and, what made the series amazing. But I think when you play Breath of the Wild, it's evident what makes it amazing. And I'll talk about that more in my review. But even from very early on, they were experimenting with these physics systems and things that really sets the game apart from other games. At one time, they prototyped some UFOs. Yeah, they're going to have UFOs in the game that would, like, suck up cows. That was the weirdest part of that documentary. I was like, what? I definitely wrote that down. That was a note. And one thing I liked is the technology of the the Sheikah Slate, the ancient Sheikah technology that left the remnants of itself, the shrines, the guardians, some of the architecture in these things looks really weird. I hope I'm saying this right, but they based it on the Jomon period of ancient Japan, which they said shared a similar thing of like a style. Not that it's like some ancient technology, but they said they were using that for artwork and inspiration because a lot of people don't know about that period, and it is kind of mysterious even to them. And these are native Japanese people saying, yeah, this part of our history is kind of strange and mysterious, so we use that as inspiration to do art and architecture. And they had some photos in there of the Jomon period, and then how that kind of became the Sheikah technology for the Sheikah Slate and the Guardian tech. It was really cool to see them. Some of the stuff that they reprinted in this documentary was actually in the last book, Creating a Champion that I talked about. They actually showed a few stills in this, and then obviously it's broadened, and there's more of it in the Creating a Champion. So again, like I said in the first part, go back. If you enjoy Zelda, it's definitely a much purchase, so you can see how all that kind of stuff went out. The second documentary, again, each one of these is only about 10 minutes. And I'm just going over the hits or what I thought was interesting. The second part of the documentary was, I don't know if these are in order, but I went to the open air concept, the idea that we call it open world, but they really said we want it to be more open air. It really started from Skyward Sword, which came out, that I should have checked, but I know it came out on the Wii. It was one of the last big titles on the Wii for Nintendo to come out. And I played Skyward Sword a little bit, but I know you started out in the Skyloft and then would kind of go down to the overworld and kind of go back and forth with the bird. And it was too limiting. And the producer, Numa, said that as well. He said, we didn't have enough time to implement the systems we wanted. We really wanted to explore different areas, but we couldn't do it. Time restraints. Obviously, Breath of the Wild was in development for like 5 or 6 years, so he said these kind of things take time. Also, they tried to use Wind Waker as a reference of the exploring, because in Wind Waker, which I haven't played, I've seen people play it. You get in a ship and you go to an island and explore. And he said that had that concept of going anywhere, but because of the hardware limitations of the GameCube, they couldn't fully realize that world, and they wanted to have more islands. So that was pretty crazy. They also, when they were like thinking of how much space they wanted to create in the new version of Hyrule for Breath of the Wild, they were trying to come up with scale, and they used modern day Kyoto in Japan for like a sense of scale, which really was surprising to me. And then on top of it, Nintendo is located in Kyoto, Nintendo in Japan. And what I thought was interesting was the main director, Hidemaru, said that it was great because he could really start to see everything kind of breaking free of when they use Kyoto, they could look at things as north, south, east, and west, and it was an easy way to, focus everything, and it made everything more clear, and it was easier for them to make maps, for them to really lay out the geography when they had that, which I thought was interesting. If you base on a real sale, it actually makes it easier. That was pretty crazy. And the last thing, two of the last things they mentioned, I'll say, they wanted the piano has never been a focus of any Zelda game. They haven't really used it, and they wanted the piano to be the main instrument, the focus. If you hear the soundtrack, which I'm probably going to pick up because I keep hearing that music in my head, if it's available, they really wanted the piano to be front and center. They really thought about that, and also they didn't just want it to be this. Even though there's orchestral beats, and they had a very small orchestra, it looked about 8 people, maybe playing different instruments. But they wanted the piano to enhance the ambient noise of the footsteps, the rain. So they didn't want it to be front and center. They just wanted it to accent it. The sound designer was on there. I did not write his name down, so I apologize about that. But you can watch the documentary on YouTube and see his info on there. He's amazing. He did an amazing job. So, shout out to everybody in the sound design. The last part that I thought was interesting about that documentary, this 10-minute documentary, was the dev team literally took a week off of development to just play the game. Now, in QA, you hear a lot of that stuff of, okay, so, we have a QA team and they're going to do this. And you hear about devs playing games. But this is probably the first time I've heard of someone purposely, hey, we're going to shut everything down for a week and all you're going to do is play the game. and I didn't hear this here this time because I've seen this documentary before, but this time I took notes. There was, well, they did kind of mention it here. What they said is it was interesting because the team really came back with a lot of good notes. To me, it's almost like writing a draft in writing. You go, oh, this is the best. And then you give your draft over to someone and they're like, well, actually, you missed this or that. Or they could come back and say, this is really great. You need to focus on X instead of Y. And I think that's what the dev team did. They really played the game and dug in and said, oh, this is an area we need to focus on. We can jettison this other stuff. So that was kind of cool to hear that they actually took a week off to just play the game. The last documentary is the story and characters, which was just kind of a broad overview. I have a few hits on this one. It was really difficult for them to structure their story because of the open air concept, the idea that you can go anywhere and kind of do anything at your own pace. How do you dole out story and make sure people hit certain story beats? And I think what they did is they said that they didn't say exactly how they were able to pull it off, but they said the structure they had in place worked in the end, which playing the game, I'll get into in my review. I think what it had to do was doing mini bosses and kind of pacing that out, I think was interesting. And also, Zelda was the character that went through the most changes. And she was the last to kind of be finalized up to the last minute because the technical director and the art designer were saying, we can make her look better and better and better. And they said it came down to like how her eyebrows looked and the light would hit her hair. And like, they really wanted to focus on her, what she looked like. And I was like, wow, this really blew me away. That was really cool. It was cool. You can see they definitely, obviously have passion, but it was amazing where you're down to the 11th hour and you're trying to change one character and how that can change the game. In the bonus session, it's really just an interview with the sound designer, the Aonuma, the main producer, Fubiyashi, and then there was another technical director there that was like talking about gameplay and stuff like that. One thing I did think was cool about I'll talk about that in my review. But so for the bonus session, they basically just asked the developers questions. What was your favorite this? What was your that? A lot of them like the shrines, the challenge shrines. They like the ones where you get thrown up in the air. Al Newman, the main producer, thought it was amazing how there's one tall lookout tower in the game. I mean, there's a lot of towers, but this one's taller than the rest. And he said they really did a good job with sense of scale because he goes, as you're climbing up, your stamina is going down, and you really have this feeling of you're not going to make it, but you make it. It's pretty cool. And so that was neat to see them talk about their thing. And then in the game, you can cook. But the thing is, if you screw up a cooking recipe, you get something called Dubious Food. And it's basically this food that is on a plate that has been pixelated, so you don't know what it looks like. And the technical guy, one of the art guys, says it was really difficult to get the look of that right because they didn't know what it should look like. But whoever came up, he didn't say who, but he said, we came up with the idea of pixelating it to make it look like it's, you can't look at it. And he said that really hit it, like really hit him hard of like, this really works and it's great. And the main producer, Arnuma, said that it actually makes him feel worse about eating the food if it's pixelated. If you could look at it, you would know what it is. But since it's pixelated, it makes it worse. And Al Numa, his thing, since he's the overall producer and we've been doing this for a very long time, his big thing that kind of blew me away is he says, I know one of the staples of the Zelda games is sitting in your house and playing the game, but I really would encourage people to play this game as a group. When people can share ideas with each other, try this, try that. He said he's really looking forward to playing the game with his kids, which I thought was interesting. And, since the Switch is portable, he said take it out, show it to people, let them see what you're doing, let them see, what the game is, and maybe they'll get ideas that way. So that is me covering very, very briefly those documentaries. And I love them. They're really quick to watch, like I said, and they really give a lot of context. And I think I said it in the last section of this review, but it is amazing to me that Nintendo, of all companies, is kind of this closed down, buttoned up company, and they actually kind of open the doors and they show you a little bit of the studio. And these people speak for, although briefly, 10 minutes. It's this, it is this focused thing, but they're really kind of peeling back the curtain going, how did we do this? How did we do this? The fact that there was UFO and cows in the games at one point that got taken away. One of the concepts they talked about was a small village where Link would shrink and go down through the village, but they said they couldn't really get it to work, and they ended up jettisoning it. It's stuff like that you don't really hear from Nintendo developers at all. How that goes, that I thought was good. But watch those documentaries. Just type in, if you go to YouTube, type in Breath of the Wild, the making of. They have like a blue background. It's got the Breath of the Wild font. There's, I think, 3 or 4, 3 main episodes, the open air concept, the characters and story, and the beginning, and then the bonus session. So yeah, 4. Go there, look at those. The next section is me, my early reviews of the game. So I'm going to actually read, I found an old review from the game that I did years ago. And it's very quick, it's very bad, but I'm going to read it. And then I won't talk about it till the end, because the next section will be my final review of the game. Because spoilers, I've actually defeated Ganon. And spent 100 plus hours playing the game. Don't worry, not this week. When I set the game down, I only had probably 5 hours to go. So the next section will be me going through my old review, chastising myself a little bit. And then there will be a surprise for you guys out there, and for me, really. A surprise to me when I found this thing. And then the last part will be my final review, but final in quotes, impressions review of Breath of the Wild. So see you guys soon. I'm back. Yeah. Just a couple seconds. So again, what I'm going to do is read a review from my other website that I was running for a while. The website is secondratefellows.com. I wrote this on March 28th, 2017. This was my kind of preliminary review of Breath of the Wild. I didn't get the game early, and I was dealing, I believe my mom was sick here. And so, yeah, I talk about it in the review. But I'm going to read this, and I'm going to critique myself because this review is really preliminary and bad, and there's absolutely no way this would ever be published because, unless I did it self-published, because there's no way to stop. There's no way to, it's just bad. So again, I wrote this on March 28th, 2017, and it's just called The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. By me, Joseph Carlson. Now I'm going to read from the article. I'm going to read the whole thing because it's only a few paragraphs. Let me start out by saying this is not a review. No, there are a lot of those online right now. You can go to IGN, Polygon, or GameSpot if you want to hear what score different outlets are giving the game. I wanted to talk about something different and a way that I'm looking at Breath of the Wild. It's therapy. My mother is sick. About a week ago, she got out of the hospital. The doctors told me that her liver is failing, but they can't give me a time of how quickly it is progressing. So now that she's out of the hospital, I come home every night and then travel about 15 minutes over to her place and help her deal with doctor bills and prescriptions, as well as low-income assistance and food stamps. This is terrible. Not the people you have to deal with, most of them are great. It's the idea that at any moment my mom might not be able to deal with this anymore. Her medication she takes keeps her sharp, but this last time she got out of the hospital was the second time because of her medication. Well, she didn't take the right amount of her medication or at the right time or something. I really didn't get a straight answer from her. Long story short, but the rub, as it were, is that at any moment, if something goes wrong, she could backslide. When I finish helping her out, I get to come home and play The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's great. Really, it is. Calamity Ganon is far off in the distance, and yes, it's terrible looking. A pink mist swirling around Hyrule Castle, which every time I look at it reminds me of a Disney castle. The game gives you a lot of distance and time. You can truly go in any direction or tackle any problem after the first hour or so. You just need to get one item to get off the Great Plateau. After that, Hyrule is yours to explore. You can climb, swim, glide, run, walk, or ride a horse across the plains, meadows, mountains, and valleys. This helps me when I think about my mother's... This helps me when I think that my mother's situation is daunting. Many people talk about games being an escape, and while I understand how people come to the conclusion, fewer people talk about the therapy that games can offer. When I enter a shrine and try to solve a puzzle, it's a good way to unwind and relax. Hell, even when I'm in combat, I keep thinking that this is a challenge, that this challenge is something that I can definitely deal with. After I get my spirit orb and I leave the shrine, I can look around and decide what direction to go. No phone calls, no paperwork, no faxing of power of attorney forms. Just a man from Hyrule on a personal quest to save the kingdom from doom. But this man has the tools to do it. with every challenge, I become a little bit more confident and a little bit stronger. Someday very soon, I'll be able to take Ganon on and save Zelda. And that's it. So I might have been a little bit hard on myself when I said that, that it was bad. It's okay. I think it's short. There's no real thesis, except that I'm giving my impression. But yeah, so that was my original impression of Breath of the Wild. And the surprise part that I talked about last time is next episode, I'm going to be talking about my friend Benjamin Arish Nelson, who passed away in 2019. He had glioblastoma. He had a brain tumor, and he was sick for a while, went through a lot of treatments, and was, when the disease hit him, when, medication, and there really wasn't a lot of options for him, when those started to run out, he made a choice to just spend as much time as possible with his loved ones without any more medical interference, as it were. But what I've done is, I know next week I'll actually be talking to his brother. Don't worry, it's pre-recorded. I'm talking to his half-brother, and we're kind of doing in my line a series of re-eulogizing Ben and talking about Ben's life and what he meant. Him and his half-brother, Joseph Johnson, Ben and his half-brother, they would play tabletop games and video games and hang out together. And it was really cool to talk to Joseph about his brother and to re-eulogize Ben, because as I said before, when we did that original eulogy, it was really subdued and quiet, and his mother, Ben's mother from Georgia, was very religious. There wasn't a lot of laughing, which Joseph and I talk about that in the podcast. His name is Joseph as well. I don't want to confuse anybody, but we talk about that it probably wasn't the preferred way that Ben wanted to do a eulogy, that, Ben was a laugher, and he was a amazing host, and he wanted everybody to have a good time, and he made sure that you were happy and he was happy. And so we really laugh a lot about Ben. But again, the surprise part, and I'm kind of slow rolling you as an old poker term goes on this, but Ben and I, back in the day, around the same time I wrote this review, had a podcast called the Second Rate Fellows Podcast. And I had a Nintendo Switch on launch day. I was just lucky to get one. And I played Breath of the Wild for a week. And then I gave my Switch to Ben for about 3 or 4 days. And then we sat down for 2 sessions, 45 minutes apiece, and we talked about what we thought about Breath of the Wild. And I found that footage, and I'm going to include it right after I'm done talking. So you can hear Ben, you can hear his voice, you can hear him be healthy and happy. We make each other laugh. Again, these are 2 chunks of a review. This was originally came out March 17th, and then the March, what would that be, the 21st. But the previous, the next week, we did them week to week. But yeah, we sat around. He just had remodeled his upstairs. We sat around in a lounge area. He had a couch set up in an alcove. We set up, I think we just used our headset mics with a splitter and recorded into my, I don't think phone, because my phone wasn't good. I think I had an iPad that was kind of what I used. And it worked. And we talked about what we thought about Breath of the Wild. So this is more of a review discussion from weeks after the game was released, when we talk about what we thought about the game. So I'm including this here because it is kind of a prequel or a precursor to what is going to be talked about next week. But when Joseph and I, his half-brother, talk about Ben, you can know at least hear Ben's voice and kind of get his attitude, because Ben is a really cool, funny guy, and you'll hear him in this. And it was, as my wife said, she listened to some of this, and she said it made her sad and happy at the same time to hear Ben's voice. So right after I get done hitting stop, I will put both those parts up. We do talk about being interrupted. Now, they're going to run as the podcast. So you're going to hear a jazz thing in the beginning, which I guess back in the day I thought it was a great idea. And then you're going to hear a jazz thing at the end, and it goes on too long. It's like a 10 or 15 second thing. I think nowadays I just kind of want to get to the episode. I think my intro is like 8 seconds. But I'll put that on, and then after that, I will be reviewing, now looking back on everything, kind of giving my final impressions and review, whatever, Breath of the Wild after beating Ganon and spending, as my Nintendo Switch said, about 100 hours with the game. And I'll tell you not definitively, but what I feel about the game now, finishing it years later. And, all the reviews have basically come out. So enjoy these this hour and a half or so of Ben and I talking about Breath of the Wild. Ben was a good guy. I wanted to do this as kind of a memorial because it's one thing to talk about someone. It's another thing to hear their voice. Yes, we do talk about Breath of the Wild, but you'll hear it. You'll hear how happy Ben was and stuff. And I think it was pretty amazing that I found this. And I was, I knew where it was, but I didn't know if I could include it in the podcast. And now I can. So you guys get to hear Ben talk about Breath of the Wild, and we just talk in general. So I'll put that right now. Hey everybody, this is Joseph Carlson, and I'm here with Ben Nelson, and this is Second Rate Fellows, episode 21, our podcast. So if you want to write us, it's jab@secondratefellows.com. That's a Gmail address, and let us know what you think of the show. We're 21 episodes in, still no mail, except for the ones for Viagra from Canada. So no feedback on the show yet.
Well, we haven't got the one from India saying that
we might have got some mail.
That we inherited like a whole bunch of money.
I don't know. We might have got some mail over rights. I have a filter. Maybe I should turn the filter off. All of our mail is being held back by a filter. That's the problem. So this week we're going to both talk about the Switch, the Nintendo Switch. I was lucky enough to get one on launch day. I had a legitimate doctor's appointment, and so I was able to basically just walk into the little-known store of Fred Meyer. Apparently it's not known around the country, but it's just a retailer. They have groceries and they have an electronics department, and I actually went in to go grocery shopping, and I thought maybe I could get a Switch, and they had some. So I've had the Switch since launch day. I've only bought one game. So what we'll do first, I let Ben borrow it for a few days. I was having withdrawals. He's smiling at me.
Few days,
yeah.
3.
Well, yeah, I had withdrawals. And so I needed to explore a whimsical land of Hyrule. But so Ben actually had some problems. So I'm going to start with you were using the Switch for a few days, and I saw it because I came over last night and I saw your problem.
So I had problems with one of the controllers, the blue, the left side.
Yeah, the left side.
Where it would unsync.
Right.
And it got I would be running towards a cliff, and I'm trying to turn, and it wouldn't turn. And then I would finally get control, or I'm trying to move in combat, or just even move around. And every so often it would lose sync, and then it would want to resync, and you'd have to push both the top bumpers to be like, hey, it's connecting, and then hit A to get back into the game. And so it would do that while I was playing it on the TV while it was docked, and it was really annoying because it kind of it
takes your experience away, right?
Right, because you're trying to do stuff and you can, and especially when you're in combat, or you're like, hey, I'm running to a cliff. I don't want to run off the edge of the cliff, because you will run off the edge of the cliff.
Or puzzles. There was another thing in the shrines.
Yeah, and so that was a bit annoying. And then the other issue I had, which Joe hadn't heard of, was I would have the Switch docked. I would turn it off from there. And then, say like the next morning, I'd get up and I got the news while I'm kind of getting ready for work. And it would kick over to the HDMI cable that the Switch is on, but nothing was turned on.
Right, because it's in sleep mode.
Right.
That's really weird.
And so I had trouble, not today, or at least not this morning. I don't know if anyone in my household had trouble today, because when I came home, I took it off the dock
which I want to talk to you about more.
And everything. But the other days had that issue, and I'd have to go to my TV settings and switch it back to the cable box. So... Right. Those were the two main issues that I had with the Switch.
Nintendo, I know the forums, people have been talking about the sync issue. They want everybody's information because they want to fix it. I heard some people say that what they did is if their phone was nearby, maybe it's Bluetooth or Wi-Fi interference, to move that away from your phone. I think what I was thinking, because I didn't experience it, our setups are kind of the same, but your living room's obviously bigger than my den. Yeah. What my thing is I'm a short distance from the Switch when I play, and then 2, I don't have my phone near my Switch or anything. You know, you got other people in your house. Maybe they're using their phone. That could be.
But even I was downstairs by myself.
Right. Yeah.
And my phone always, when I get home, I usually turn the Bluetooth off because I'm not on the Bluetooth in it.
And it just drains the battery.
It'll drain battery fast.
Yeah.
I noticed with the Bluetooth. The Wi-Fi may or may not be on. A lot of times I turn my Wi-Fi on because I'm more likely to use my Wi-Fi.
Right. You don't want to pay. Yeah. You don't want to pay your data.
And so. But and the phone may have been in between me, or it would be to the side. But I was in a straight line to the Switch. It was off to the side of the TV. It wasn't behind anything blocking a straight line to it. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping it's going to be a software fix, you know, because they are trying to collect data from people. Like this is exactly, you know, they're like, be very specific when you write in, say, you know, I was this far. This is where my phone was. It was a foot away or whatever. Hopefully they fix that because I didn't experience it, but I saw you,
right.
And I could imagine when you're in a shrine trying to complete a puzzle in Zelda and you jump off the side or, you know, you leap somewhere.
Well, you saw me run off a cliff once.
Yeah, you ran off a cliff,
and I'm going, look, Joe, look, I'm hands off.
Yeah,
and I'm running.
Or you kept falling down, like you were climbing, but you kept falling down and then climbing up. It was like in this weird loop,
right?
Where you were like, luckily there was like a ledge and you were just kind of like climbing and jumping down and climbing.
And Joe kept picking on me, and I'm like, look, I'm trying to go up.
Yeah,
it's
and he would show me like, and then I was like, what, have you never used a controller before? He's like, it's not me, man. And I was like, every gamer says that. And he's like, no, it's really not me.
Yeah.
But what I want to talk to you, so the good things about the Switch, you played it more in handheld more probably than I did. I played about an hour.
Today I played all handheld.
Yeah.
Because I had people watching television.
Yeah, which is great, right?
So I just put earphones in and so it's great that I could sit there and play while people watch TV. Right. And
it's the same experience, right?
Right.
Because they say that with the Wii U, it's not, the screen wasn't as sharp as the screen on the Switch.
The screen on the Switch, the only thing I would do would be adjust the color settings a little, because sometimes it's like a little
seems
bright.
A little muted.
Oh, to me it's like a little like bright. I need a little more clarity in the stuff. The only thing I kind of didn't like about playing it on as a handheld versus on the TV was I like doing a lot of stuff that's not the mission.
Yeah,
in a sandbox environment, I love exploring.
And we'll do a whole section on Zelda. So this is just the hardware stuff, but
this it would be so visually I'd be running all of a sudden it's like so in the television it'd be hard enough to see, oh wait, that was a bird, and I'm thinking it's a rock, and I run up and he flies by. I was like, oh, I was going to shoot the bird if I knew that was a bird. Well, it was even harder to notice.
Right, in handheld.
So in handheld, some little things that are going on, little more hard to notice, but all in all, it wasn't too bad. I enjoyed it.
Well, I mean, what I've heard people say, like the commercial they show you of people, like there's one TV spot for like the Super Bowl where it just shows that kid like get up, and he just plays it. He just like wakes up. It's on his nightstand. He starts playing Zelda, and then he's playing, and then he goes to like the living room, pops it down, and then half a second later it's on the TV.
Yeah,
I mean,
I did do that.
That's what the system does. That's not, you always see in commercials with tech, they're always like image not displayed, or like image, image dramatization, or not final image, right. Or, they'll put a disclaimer there, like this isn't what the final image is or whatever. But like the Switch really does that.
Yeah.
I mean, the moment you pop it in the dock, you have...
Yeah, I did that yesterday, and that was really cool. All you had to do is just take the controllers off,
right,
and
which
I
is
did it on the little hand thing. And so that was really cool. I didn't do where it's on the screen and you pull it off and it goes straight. I don't think I did that. So like we were playing on TV and then you want to take it to go and you put the controllers and you take it off the dock. And I can't remember if I did that or not. I don't think.
Well, you did that because I was here and you had it in your lap.
Yeah, but
playing.
Right, but then I docked it.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe vice versa. But anyway, it changes.
It's
seamlessly.
simple.
I mean,
just to pop the controllers on and off the side is like a 15-second thing.
And the fact that if someone's got the TV on, like someone was watching TV, and then when they left on one of the days, I actually docked it and it right there, and I took the controllers off, and then I could sit down, and that was all I had to do. Yeah, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, and so every time you play it, you're like, because you see advertising stuff all the time, and you're like, that's not what Clorox does or whatever. It's not going to get your shirts that white.
Yeah.
But this is something where you see it and you start using it and say, this works exactly how they're saying it works. Now, everybody can talk about power. So that was the one thing that kind of blew my mind when they announced the Switch. Everybody's like, well, it's not as powerful as the PS4. It's like, well, yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
Yeah.
Like, you're basically comparing a PC to a phone. Like, phones are powerful, but they're not a PC.
Yeah.
But just the convenience of having a phone in your pocket.
Well, this is a more versatile device.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing that when you initially showed me the trailer and I watched it and everything, that was what I liked about it.
Yeah.
And Nintendo games have always been a little bit different than everybody else's and stuff. Right. And so it's a little bit like they're the same. They're in the fruit, but they're a different fruit. I mean, they're not taking. Well, do you like
they're a star
gray
fruit,
bears
man.
versus the Roma apple versus whatever? They're a little slightly different.
They're
fruit.
the star fruit.
Yeah.
They're the star fruit of the fruit family. Everybody see the star fruit like what?
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying though. And my thing with we've all played games that look amazing and they're not fun to play. But we've all had games that were really maybe didn't look the best, but like super fun to play.
Yeah.
And I think that's Nintendo's thing is it fun? Are we having a good time? Is it enjoyable? Not, oh man, this isn't The Division. It doesn't look that gritty.
Yeah.
Like another game you and I play. But like the gameplay is just so solid just on their games that they're able to squeeze a lot more out of their hardware than other developers, Yeah. I like the idea of having a micro SD card as well. Right now, I think when you put the micro SD card in, it locks it to that system. So it writes some kind of data that if you take it out, and if I was to take my SD card out, try to put it into your Switch, it would say this SD card belongs to another Switch owner.
Right.
So I think maybe later they'll have a system where you can transfer or whatever. The micro SD cards right now are kind of expensive where I got them. I tried to buy the exact same brand that was on Nintendo's live stream because the Treehouse people were showing you how to put the SD card in.
Right.
And they said, this is the one we bought. So I got really weird. I'm sure you can buy any brand of micro SD card, but my thing was like, well, if they used it in the demo, then that's what you got to use. Yeah. And even the 256 gigabyte ones are almost as much as the Switch itself.
Yeah.
So, like, I got a 128 one for $40, which to me is fine.
So we're talking about I'm playing it in handheld.
Yeah.
And people talk about battery life. So I got on it just about pretty much the time I got home, which is 4:30. I took a small break while I was eating. So 15 minutes.
You could have put it up
20.
on the kickstand. There's a kickstand in the back, and you could have. No, I just.
No. I didn't want to mess it. Oh, and then I just stopped. Probably about 15 minutes, or not, probably 10 minutes ago.
Right.
So I got about 3 hours
of
gameplay because just before I turned it off for us to record, I got a low battery.
Oh, okay.
And so a lot of people complain. We're talking about the battery, and I'm thinking, 3 hours for a handheld device that size,
that's outputting
with that graphic
Zelda
and everything. I don't see why people are complaining because really after 3 hours you should be doing that. Now I'm a gamer and I don't play like I used to, and Ben's
clock time is what he's saying. Yeah. I know what Ben is.
I've been on off, and when at World of Warcraft when I was playing it 50 hours a week, people, and I still kept my job and I still paid my bills.
Yeah, and Ben's online, so. Yeah, I mean, that's
so I don't see what the problem is for the 3 hours.
Right, and then too, like, if you're that hard up, there is external batteries. There's tons of websites that are checking for, can you play while it's charging?
Yeah.
Do you have to dock it? Go look at those. Like, CNET, I'm sure, is doing those.
Yeah.
I know Digital Foundry is very good for that.
I think 3 hours, being able to get 3 hours of good game time in before you get a warning that, hey, low battery, on a portable device like that, with that quality, I'm happy. I'm thrilled short. 4 hours would be. I wouldn't lie. 4 hours would be a little better, but 3 I think is perfectly reasonable.
Right, and it's also the type of game because there's going to be small independent games that aren't gonna,
you look at the screen size. You look at when you on my phone. If I'm playing Super Farm Heroes, and I'm just playing that burns through phone that burns through my phone battery.
Yeah,
and you're thinking this is just Super Farm Hero.
Yeah.
So if you think about all the little graphics and everything that's going on and the energy on that for just a little, I'm like I said, anyone who has a problem with the battery life, they need to get a reality check.
Yeah. Well, again, Nintendo probably could have done a better job with whatever, but again, everybody has problems with everybody has problems with their phones and like, I'm out and I need a charger. If you're traveling and you want the Switch to last for 5 hours, there's options for you to go get an external battery that will keep it alive that much more. For me, right now, it hasn't been a problem. One, I'm really nervous about taking it out because I haven't been able to find a case with a really good review yet. Mm-hmm. So when I get that, I will take it out because I will be waiting in doctor's offices and things. Yeah. I got some stuff going on, and the idea of just sitting there like waiting for something or whatever and being able to pop that out and play it, you know.
The plugging, the one thing that everyone's talked about that's playing, and we might as well bring this up, is if you're plugging into a charger source and you're trying to watch a movie and you're trying to set it down on your stand, you can't. Yeah. And whoever thought about that? Yeah. That should have been a big. They should lose their Christmas bonus for the next 10 years.
Yeah, because you could put it on the ridiculous. Side. Now there is like a stand you can buy with a hole in the bottom of the stand.
Right, but why should you have to buy something extra for that? That is stupid. And
to me, that's one of the things you're like, what? And why is it underneath? Why isn't it?
And that would be one of my big complaints.
Right.
And then there's one other one we'll let you finish on the charging thing.
Well, I mean, for my thing is like, I know a lot of people were down on it when it got announced. I think some of that was the feed coming from Tokyo. It was a live event. So you're trying to follow this stuff. They have interpreters, and the feed kept cutting out. So, I mean, everybody's like kind of down on it. Oh, and then they were announcing how much the peripherals were, and then people got all over that. Right. And I've heard good reviews. I haven't used a Pro controller, which is basically just an Xbox 360 controller. Right. But everybody's saying that is like really good to play. Mm-hmm. It feels good. It syncs instantly with it. Like I've used the Wii and I've used the Wii U, and that was a pain. There's a button on the side you had to press. You had to press a button on the controller. You had to wait for him to recognize. If you had a bunch of people in the room, they had to do that 4 times or whatever. And this is just apparently, from what I'm hearing, the reports is you click it. Oh, look, you have a controller. Boom, you're in the game, Mm-hmm. The UI, too, is really Spartan, but I like that. Because to me, that's just stuff in the way for you to do what you're doing. I want to go to the eShop. Click on the eShop. I'm in the eShop. Click on a game. I want to play a game. I have it on the hard drive. I'm playing it. The idea of hitting the home button and going from the home button to your game in 10 minutes is like 10 seconds is amazing. Yeah, not even that. The load and everything. Yeah, it's really good. So what were we gonna?
So the other issue is where they have the X, the Y, the A, and the B button.
Yeah.
Oh my God! And it still was driving me crazy. Yeah.
Wait till you go back to playing Xbox. Just wait, man. I've done it, and you're like, I don't want to exit out of this. That's not where they is. Yeah, it's just one of those things where I wonder if honestly, like Microsoft patented that layout. Yeah. Because Nintendo's always had. The B and A I understand because, the NES controller, B was here, A was here. Right. So A was on the far right, B was on the left. Mm-hmm. So I get that part, but the X and Y, I wonder if they did patent, like, where the layout was of the buttons, so Nintendo had to go the other way. It's just one of those things where you're like, come on, man. Yeah. Like, that's...
There is a meme I saw, and it showed, like, all the different controllers through the years, and... the triangles move and the X and Y moves and everything moves, and it's like, this is why I have trouble playing video games.
Yeah, am I crouching?
You didn't have this problem with the PC.
Right, yeah. The mouse button is always on the left. There's always a right button.
You can reset everything the way you want. I had a friend that all his movements controls were off of the keypad. And he could manage with the keypad and the mouse, like, just excellent. And he was happy with that. I just went to traditional school, and so that's the thing. I still love first-person shooters, and I love PC control, being able to do stuff and the options.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're both...
it's like, can we just, people, quit trying to outdo each other, and can we just, for the sake of the gamers, and to show that you love the fan base, whether they're Nintendo or PlayStation, whatever, standardize the controls.
Well, one thing they did do, which I really like, is I guess if you pull up one of the toggles, just move it out of the way, they wrote a message for everybody that bought it that says, thank you. Oh. And it's very small, but it says, thank you for gamers, or like, Thank you
that's
for buying
pretty cool.
it. So it's stenciled inside. It's very small. You got to kind of use a magnifying glass, but somebody found it, and it's on every Pro controller you buy. So it's like, hey, thanks for buying this. It is a little bit more expensive than Pro controller, but there's more hardware in it. The aiming thing that I showed you, like we were playing Zelda.
I played with that a little bit today.
You get better with it?
Well, it wasn't towards the end because I'd forget about it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I can aim about it, and I was trying to get used to running because I was trying to run down a fox. I was running down
a fox.
I got a fox.
Oh yeah, I can never.
I got one shot on initially, and then he ran that bugger, and I'm like, all right, let's try the arrow, and I'm trying to think how I want to move the bow versus my thumb for movement. It took a while, but I finally chased that bugger down and got him.
Oh, do you get meat? Do you just get meat?
Yeah, I think it was just meat, but still. I got the bugger.
I could never get the fox. They're just too fast. So
hey, I got frogs and lizards too, man.
Oh yeah.
And a fish.
I got the fish. We'll do Zelda. We'll do the whole thing on Zelda. So overall, I mean, you liked it was besides the desyncing, you had a good time.
But other than the desyncing, that was the big thing that really annoys you. It's like when you're trying to watch something on your PC or your phone or whatever, and you get stuck in buffering. Yeah, and you're like you play 2 seconds and then you're buffering. You're famous
white and black wheel that moves around.
Yeah, you're trying to listen to a song or watch a movie, and it's like, and so that. Oh, come on.
A trailer is the worst.
Yeah.
Especially when a trailer drops and you're like, I really want to watch this.
Or it's a song you really like and you're just like, hey, I haven't listened to this song forever. And apparently it's
and I'm not going to listen to it today because it's buffering.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to do the next game it's going to be just about Zelda. It's the only launch game I got. But we both had, I spent about 15 hours playing it. Ben probably spent about 5 or 10. And so we're going to just talk about early experiences. Obviously, no spoilers because I haven't spoiled them for myself. I haven't looked them up online, and I haven't encountered like main story beats yet. So except for the one main thing that kind of kicks you off.
Maybe spoilers on stuff we figured out how to do, but other than that.
Right. So we'll do that next. So stay tuned. All right, we're back. Strangely, it took way too long to do that. So what we're going to do now is we're both going to talk about Zelda. Because that was the one thing where I tried to go kind of media black before it got released, but I really have enjoyed Zelda over the years, and the fact that there hadn't been a Zelda in like 5 or 6 years, you start getting the itch, right? And the more and more you hear about this game, about it being open, and the art style I really liked from the trailers I saw. And so I got that, which anecdotally, I'll tell you, that game cost me probably $100. Because what happened was I was in Best Buy months ago, and I had a gift card. And, you usually got to scratch off the gray area of the gift card to get the code for the money. Well, the cashier did a trick where she kind of peeled the side off, and then she ripped the whole gray section off and got to the code. And I was like, oh, that's a cool trick. So I got an e-card to download Zelda, and I tried to do that, but it didn't rip all the way, and it obscured the numbers. So for 3 or 4 times, my wife and I tried to keep putting the code in, and to no avail. So I had to go get another card, another $50 card, and put it in to... And then that one worked. So I had some Christmas money, so I was able to get Zelda, and I still have money in my account. But Zelda cost me more than most people probably, unless they bought like the Master Edition of the game. But I'll let you. How many hours did you play?
Let's see.
It probably didn't. Yours didn't roll over. So
3. Yeah, I probably played 3. I probably close to 12 hours. 10,
wow. Okay.
10 or 12.
So yeah, because I could only play for like an hour a night because. I have to get up early in the morning for my job and everything, but so I played for about 15 hours.
Yeah, maybe 8, somewhere in there.
So the only thing that we know, well, the only thing that I've seen real story-wise has been, you go through the Great Plateau, which is the beginning,
right? And
you meet somebody who gives you the ability to give you the paraglider, so you can actually glide off the plateau.
Oh, that guy ticked me off.
Yeah, he does a thing where he says, well, if you go do this one thing for me, I'll give you the paraglider. You do it, and he goes, hey, how about you do that 4 more times, and then I'll give you the paraglider. And you're like, that wasn't... And you can actually tell him that's not the deal or whatever.
Yeah, it did.
And then what does he say?
It's like kind of tough luck. I changed the deal.
Okay. Because I was like, all right.
It's basically you're in no position. You need the glider. I got the glider. It's a seller's market.
Yeah, basically. I was like, darn it, or whatever. That like, okay, whatever you want.
I was like, hey, old man.
I was really like, come on. But I really like the idea of. I saw the trailer in Japanese for the game, that very opening scene where you run out of the first shrine and you are overlooking that bluff and you just see everything. And when I saw it, it was really small. It wasn't on my phone. It was on my computer, but I didn't maximize it, so the screen was probably 8 inches by 8 inches. Sorry for our non-European writing listeners that don't write into the show. But it was really small and it looked really neat, right? But when it was on my TV, I mean a 55-inch TV that I have, and I had it docked. That moment is amazing. The way the sun's rising, you see the winds blowing, and then you get the title, Breath of the Wild. And to me, that was a great moment. And then just the idea that even months later, people are still discovering things about this game. I'm reading articles where people are like, hey, did you know you can do this? Did you know you can do this? Yeah. I can't believe you can do that. And that's, usually like the way games are nowadays too. There's a lot of games coming out this year, and I've done it. I know Ben's done it, where you get excited about something, but then something else comes along, and you get excited by that, and you kind of put the first thing down. Like, really, I just want to keep messing around in Zelda. My wife has Horizon on PS4, the new game that came out, Horizon Zero Dawn. She got Resident Evil weeks ago. I want to play that. But I keep, like, okay, well... I could do that, or I could try to find this other village in Zelda that I've heard is around this area, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where I just want to write an open letter to game developers and be like, hey, sorry for everybody else that's releasing a game this year, but I kind of just want to play this game for the rest of the... I'm good. There's so much to do. Just things like, you can tame horses in this game, and you can find a lot of horses. And you can find Epona, the most famous horse in the Legend of Zelda series. I guess if you know where to look. I don't know where to look. I've also tried not to look at things online that spoil the story. Because you can go online and be like, here's where the Master Sword is, and here's how to get all your heart containers, and I haven't looked at that, I've just been, I want to try to discover this stuff, And that idea of, hey, what's over there? Because, like in other open world games, like Ubisoft is definitely, like, we're playing The Division. So, like, when you'd uncover an area, they would mark everything on the map instantly. Here's your side mission, here's your main mission, here's the story mission, here's your security mission. It's all there. But, like, when you find an area in Breath of the Wild, you don't know what's it'll just show you the topography of the map. So there's a mountain here, and there's a lake here, and there's some woods here, but you don't know if there's a shrine there, if there's a town, could be some stables, there might be some enemy camps. You don't know any of that. You actually have to look around for that stuff. And to me, that makes it more special when you find that stuff.
Yeah, I kind of enjoy that. I mean, there's a little bit of the frustration. It's like, where to go? But then that's what's kind of cool about these true sandboxes is you got to find out.
Yeah, and the thing is, you can also, they give you the pins, so you can mark the map and go, there's something there. I'm going to mark it. I'll come back later.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. And then they have icons, so you can be like, I think that's treasure. So I'll mark that as treasure. Or
there's a big bad enemy and I wasn't strong enough, so I'm going to mark that.
Which you did something.
And I know I can come back.
You did something I didn't do, which in the beginning area, there's a creature you find, and he gets really aggressive. And Ben beat him. I didn't beat him because I had an idea what to do, but he beat me. And Ben just whooped him pretty easy, actually.
It took me a little bit because I was trying a couple of things. Well, and I tried a couple of things that didn't kind of work.
Yeah.
Like try to blow him up. It didn't.
Well, yeah, he was really a rock creature.
Hey, rocks blow up, and you got to be the right rock.
Right, apparently not. Yeah, apparently not with your crappy bomb.
Yeah,
he was like, no.
Hey, if I could have planted that bomb on the top of him,
that probably would have done damage.
Because I've the little ore things that you can take a hammer to.
Oh yeah,
you can blow those up and
oh okay.
I discovered I did that.
Well, good. Then I don't need to find a hammer somewhere to do that.
Yeah, so you can just throw a bomb over there, and then you have to watch the material. Will especially if
it's got to recharge.
It goes down a little bit. Luckily, it wasn't as steep.
I did that. There was one Bokoblin camp where I snuck up on the guys and I was on top of where they were on a bluff, And what I did is I just took a bomb, and instead of throwing it, you just place it down, and it just rolled down the hill. And I just waited for it. I just waited for it to roll down the hill, and I was so far above them that they didn't know where I was. So I blew it up, and I killed like 2 of them, and there was a bigger one who didn't know. So then he's looking around, and I'm like, I just rolled another one down the hill, and then he looked around, and then I did it again, and I killed him, and it was really
I had the
gratifying.
opposite reaction where they were up the hill, and I was running up there, and my weapon broke, and it's 2 of the blue ones, so they're harder hitter and everything.
Yeah.
So I'm running down the hill. I get a bomb and I kind of drop it, and it's rolling down the hill with me. I'm like, well, this kind of defeats my purpose.
You're like, no.
And then I go, that's why you use the square bomb.
Yeah, and they say that in the tips, like, the square bombs won't roll. And you're like, well, of course they wouldn't roll.
And I didn't realize I hadn't switched it, and it's like, all right, so let me just run all the way down here, and they didn't follow me, and it wouldn't have done any good anyway because it ran right across one of their cave buildings, and it's not like I can't stay in the blast area, so it's like
no. I did that one time. Those bombs hurt.
Oh God! Dude.
I mean, it caught a field on fire. Was in. I caught a horse on fire because the bokoblins. Some of them are actually riders. They'll actually tame, but they're wild horses.
Uh-huh.
So I was trying to get a bokoblin, and he chased me. So I just dropped it behind me and blew it up. He went flying over my head, but it caught the field on fire, and it caught the horse on fire. The horse took off and wasn't on fire, but the bokoblin was like getting up, and he was still on fire. And the horse just was like waiting, like, I don't know what's going on. Like, he didn't run away. He was like, I don't. But see, that's the thing is, like, Ben and I could both play the game, and we could do this like all day. Like, did you try this? Did you try that?
Oh, or like, or you find different things. Like, I was showing him. He was talking about how to. There's this little chasm, and you can kind of run down, and you have to kind of climb up to get to the other side. Well, what I did when I found out was you could take an axe and go to the tree, and if you're on the backside facing the chasm and you chop the tree, if it's big enough, will fall, and then you can cross the tree carefully.
Yeah.
But you can, a much quicker way, just go across. And he's
Right.
like, what? And on one of them, it dropped a leaf that you could pick up and use as a weapon.
And I never got that. I never got that leaf.
He's like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, it's this. And
then you were finding a bunch of them, like you're rubbing it in my face. Like,
so
there's like another one. I'll just throw this one away.
And if they're far enough away and you swing, it creates a vortex of air and pushes them far away from
And they
you.
lose their weapon, too.
Yeah, and so he was like, what? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, man.
Yeah. And then, but everybody kind of, some people like the durability because they have your weapons have a durability.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like it, some people didn't like it. I liked it because it makes you more engaged in combat. You're like, oh man, this is going to break. I got one shot. Some people don't like it because they think, oh, I don't want to pause combat to select another weapon, or whatever.
I was a little on both. I can deal with the durability. I've had other games with durability.
Yeah.
I think the durability could be just a little bit longer.
Right.
Because it's like you can't even get through a battle
until like 3 things, like a bat breaks.
Weapons,
or...
Yeah, and
in fairness,
even when you get like this, like a bigger weapon, you're like, ooh, this should last a little bit longer. Yeah,
well, I did hear later in the game, like we're not that far in, but I did hear the later you get, you find weapons that do not break as often.
Yeah.
So I think it like. If you pick up a rusty sword, which I did, you're like, yeah, I got 3 hits and this thing's gone.
Yeah.
But there's so many little things like, I think the shrines, which are optional, you get spirit orbs and that gives you pray to the goddess, you'll find a statue, you'll pray. After you get 4 orbs, you can go for more stamina, which is a big deal for climbing and running and swimming, or you can go for heart containers. And everybody says, oh man, that's 4. I found out my sister-in-law's husband was playing the game on the Wii U, which the Switch version actually has voice acting. The Wii U version does not. It's all text.
Right.
But you go to one of the people that you find is like the Zora, which they're in other Zelda games, and they're all water people. They're like half merman or whatever. They give you a suit, and you can swim. So you don't have to worry about your stamina while you're
catch
swimming.
Fish so much easier.
Yeah, I know. And he showed it to me, and I was like, where is that? And he goes, I can show you. And part of me was like, I want to know. But part of me was like, I want to find out where that is. I want to run around and find where this village is because I want that suit.
There's something I want you to try for me.
Uh-huh.
And I thought about trying it, but I was trying to get a lot of game time in because, like I said, I only have a short time, and I don't play video games enough. Like I have backlog on my PC through Steam.
Yeah.
And through my Xbox.
So is everybody else, Ben. Those sales are killers.
Yeah, but everyone plays probably more than I do. I mean, but anyway, when you see a school of fish, throw a bomb in there and set it off. I'm curious if it'll kick the fish up out of the water and onto the land.
Or I wonder, like the Octorok, when you beat the Octoroks, their bladder, they pop their bladder out, and you can use it as a balloon. I wonder if you could throw that in the water, if it would shoot the fish up in the air or something.
I don't know, but try the bomb thing. I mean, I'm from the South, and you know how Southerners
fishing?
Like to use the dynamite.
You want to do dynamite fishing? Yeah, that's another thing. And then I just read today where I think I told you that if you have a rusty weapon, if the Octorok is going down, if you time it right and throw it at him, he'll suck your weapon in, and then he'll spit it out at you, and he cleans all the rust off of it.
Yeah.
So
I tried it, but I didn't.
You gotta
time it right.
See, to me, that's an amazing thing that is like a once in a lifetime shot of like, okay, I'm gonna aim.
That's one in a million.
Yeah, and then you get it, and you're like, I got it, I can't believe it. But I mean, they, the way they designed the game was, like, they really did give you a lot of like, well, what if we did this or what if we did that, and what if and what we didn't say is the beginning area, the plateau, the Great Plateau. The shrines you go in, like your Sheikah Slate, which is in the trailers. It basically looks like a switch. You use it to power magnets and stuff. They give you all those abilities within the first hour of the game. You know, the whole point is, you meet somebody who is going to give you the paraglider. He wants you to go to those shrines, and then you don't have to go in anymore if you don't want. Right. But they're giving you all the tools at your disposal in the first hour to basically do anything in the game. You can cheese puzzles. Like, you and I, like, play Portal, and I was telling you it reminded me a lot of Portal.
Yeah, I was thinking that earlier today.
Right, where you kind of overthink things. You're like, oh, man, how do I get from over there? And then I got to do this.
I did that tonight.
Yeah, and then what you do is, like, within 5 minutes you solve it, because you're like, oh, I just need to get this over there.
Yeah,
like these two things.
I did a puzzle today that I figured out fairly quick what I needed to do in the first part. And then I'm looking at the second part, and I go up, and I'm kind of looking at it, and I kind of know what needs to be done, but I thought wrong. And I did all this work to get to the top to realize I didn't need to do that. Because getting to the top didn't put me where I need to be. And so it was like, I could have solved this puzzle if I had just slightly realized that sooner in like 15 minutes faster.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's when you're like, okay, I know I'm a fairly intelligent individual, but now I feel like a complete moron.
Well, there was one I did, which, it's actually in a trailer, so I'm not really giving away the spoilers, but it's basically those old marble games where you try to balance a marble and get it out of a maze. They do that where they drop this ball that there's this floating platform.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
So there's this floating platform, and they drop a ball in there, and there's all these fences. So you have to get the ball around the fences, like down these paths.
Oh, I did a different one.
And you have to get it, while you're balancing this thing, and there's a gyro thing in the controller. So you're moving the controller, trying to balance this board and get this ball off onto this platform and go on a weight so it opens a door. So I messed around with that for like 10 minutes, and it's fallen off because the fences have holes in it, so you have to guide it. It's a maze, And I got so frustrated what it is, I flipped my controller upside down, and the bottom of the thing is a flat surface. Uh-huh. So then I just rolled the ball, like basically just made a slingshot out of it, like a catapult, and I just catapulted it forward where it wouldn't, like if I had it the other way, it might hit the fence area. Mm-hmm. But I did this where I just flipped it over, and it made it on the weight. So I kind of cheesed the puzzle, but they allow you to flip it over. So like they probably thought, well, someone's going to try to just flip this over and make, they're just going to try to do this.
It's like, hey, if you think to flip it over, congrats.
Yeah. And, but then they put chests in all the shrines, and you find very powerful weapons usually you find ore or weapons,
I found the one I was working on today on the chest. I think it was like a 30 or like a 50 ruple.
Oh.
Like a high value
50 rupee or whatever, 50 rupee coin?
Yeah.
I found 100. I found a silver rupee.
Oh, wow.
For 100. It's actually near one of the towers, unless it's procedurally generated. There's a tower you go to and you find, anyway. But I mean, overall, like, I'm kind of blown away that, everybody harps on Nintendo because they're like, oh, you're going to come out with another Mario Kart, or you're going to come out with another Mario game, another platforming Mario game, or you're going to come out with another Zelda. It's just going to be this, rote, kind of corridor kind of experience where you kind of funnel people from experience to experience.
Right.
Yeah, you're going to get the hook shot, and that'll open up another part of the dungeon. We've all seen it before. And with this one, they were really like, no, we need to do something different and something better. And I think they have. I mean, it's amazing to me that I still have those moments where you'll find something going, well, I never thought I'd see that in the game, like you'll see a tower somewhere, you'll see a stable, or you'll just see a camp of people just sitting there talking. Or
the fun thing about this type of game too versus like the Division, which I really much enjoyed doing, is two people can play and find different things.
Yeah.
And like I said, in the short time that we've played, like I realized I missed a puzzle, like a whole area.
Oh.
And so it's like I would need to try to figure out if I can even get back to do it.
Again, I think for me, I haven't been using the pins, and I need to start using those. Because I'll see something and go like, I need to go, that is something that I'll need to do later, or I need to figure that out, or that looks like treasure, but I don't know how to get to it. I'll mark it, and then I'll come back and be like, man, where was that? I don't remember where that was.
Because it's so easy. You get to explore, and you have squirrel moments.
Yeah.
Because like I was trying to get to one of the towers. I'm like, I'm going to get to that tower today. And be like, ooh, what's that over there? And like, okay, wait a minute, which direction was the tower again? I didn't mark it. Where is it? Okay, there it is. And so I go, and then I'm like, what's that over there? And you find stuff on the way that kind of divert your attention, and you're like...
But that's the thing is, too, the stuff you find, it doesn't feel like a waste of time.
No.
It isn't like, oh, I shouldn't have done this for 20 minutes. It's like, I figured out this, I got this weapon, like I got more money, I found a horse now that I can ride. Like, it's always something that feels useful. It doesn't feel...
A new resource.
Right, because... we both play World of Warcraft, and you're like, okay, I need to do this mission, or I need to literally grind for this for faction rep or whatever, and you're literally sitting there for 2 hours trying to collect feathers or a coin or something, and you're like, what am I? So I can just buy like a helm or something? Like it doesn't.
Or you're grinding just to get stuff to do a dungeon. Or
right.
Whatever. Yeah.
And I mean, with this game, it feels like, I don't know what's over there, but it's rewarding to go over there, and I feel like I've been properly rewarded.
Since we did mention World of Warcraft, there is one thing in the gameplay that really aggravated me, and that was the cooking. Because you figure out a recipe, and it would be nice if they had an area where you could scroll through recipes that you found, instead of having to remember, how did I make this again? And so something like that would have been cool. Or if they had a way where you could mark at least certain recipes. So after a while, you could, like, if you're like, I'm too high level to just make pepper steak, I can forget that recipe, and I can remember ones that help keep me warm when I'm in the cold section, or my stamina, and so that you could at least mark favorite recipes. Something like that would have been, I think, really great for the cooking section.
I think there's guides. I think there's guides online that.
Yeah, and it just seemed time consuming to cook, because you're like, all right, I just made only 6 things, and it seemed like it just took a lot of time to go through, especially when you kept trying to, because I'm used to the Xbox controller, and I kept hitting the back button.
Hey everybody, it's me, Joseph Carlson, and I'm here with Ben Nelson, and this is the Second Rate Fellows podcast, episode 22. And this week, we're going to talk in the first segment about Breath of the Wild again. We got cut off last time.
I hope I can remember everything.
Well, you were talking about what you didn't like about the game.
Yeah.
Which, there's things I don't like about the game. So we'll go over that. You said you didn't like cooking.
Yeah. The cooking,
it's really cumbersome to cook. It is.
It is too cumbersome
to cook.
Because you only can cook one meal at a time,
and you can only hold 5 items while you're cooking, which
is fine. It's the 5. I get the 5 items as in, okay, this is what I'm going to mix. You have to mix at least 2. Well, you can cook, I think, 1 item by itself, because you can just
you can bake an apple or bake a acorn.
And so you can mix 5 ingredients together and try to come up with a recipe. But there's nowhere, once you've eaten, like, say you made 5 of a really good recipe, and you eat those 5, you're like, okay, I want to make that again. There's nothing that tells you, you don't have the menu recipe, but you do.
So what you do is, this is how I had to cheese it. So what you have to do is you have to make the item,
And I took a picture of this, and I'm glad I did, because I made it and then died, and it erased it the thing from my inventory, because they loaded me back before I made it.
Right.
So I was bragging to my brother-in-law and took a photo of it. I made a dish that did full recovery of all your hearts plus 9 extra temporary hearts.
Oh my god!
So I took a photo of it, and luckily when I died, I was like, oh, I still have all the ingredients that I took a photo. So what you do is you go to the dish after you make it, and you click on it, and it says eat or recipe. You can click on recipe, and it'll list all the ingredients you used to make that.
Okay.
So if you wanted to cheese it, you could probably go online and find, I'm sure someone's made a cooking guide of make these. But if the items like the full recovery plus 9 hearts, take a photo of that and be like, this is what I need to make these dishes, Okay. But I agree with you. It does suck that you can only do one at a time. If I have 4 radishes and 4 steaks and I want to make radishy steak or whatever they're going to call it, I should be able to go, I want to make 3 of these, and then they all go in a pot, and you just keep going.
Or they do it, it'd be cool if they just did it all at one time. Or if you do it like you do in World of Warcraft, where you watch them crafting this 1, and then you watch them crafting 2, and you watch them crafting 3.
You know what I've never tried, which there's one town, one of the villages, Hento Village, I think. There's 2 cooking pots next to each other. So I wonder if you could do one and then go over to the other. Well, I think you throw them in, it starts the animation.
Right,
so probably
and then you're stuck in that cycle.
Right, which it doesn't take long. It's not like a 15-minute long animation where you're like, come on.
Yeah, but still, when you're trying, we have a whole bunch of ingredients, especially if you're experiment. Well, not when you're experimenting.
I experiment all the time.
And you know what you want to make and everything, and you're trying to stock up.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a long time.
It does.
And it'd be nice if you could just click on the recipe, because even if you have the recipe, then you still have to kind of remember, okay, I'm assuming, I don't know, because I haven't gotten this far. So you can see the recipe, that you still have to go and pick this item, pick that item. You can't just click on the recipe, or can you just click on the recipe?
You can click on the recipe and it'll say,
But, I mean, you can't click on the recipe and be like, make that.
Yeah, you can't do that yet.
See, that's annoying. Right. That would be annoying to me. It's like, okay, so...
Yeah, that is.
So now at least you have noticed, but the fact that I got to remember these 5 ingredients. Okay, where's this one? Where's this one? Where's this one? Where's this... What was the 5th ingredient?
Yeah.
And so you'd have to cancel, go back out, or what?
Yeah.
No, click on the menu, go, I want 5 of these.
Yeah.
And if I have the ingredients, it goes, hey, you can make 5. Well, I want to make 3.
Yeah, because I want to hold some in reserve.
And then I want to use this ingredient to make another 2 of these or whatever.
Yeah. So also, what I think is interesting is I made the recipe one way where I switched 2 ingredients. Like one was in the second. It was the second one I did, one was the third. And the first time I made that, it was full recovery plus 8 temporary hearts. Uh-huh. So I switched 2 ingredients, and it was full recovery plus 9 temporary hearts. So that is how minute it is to, if you switch an ingredient to the third or the first slot, that it'll make it that much better, which I was just blown away.
That'd also almost be maddening.
Because you're like, if I mix these 2 things.
There's an infinite number, I mean, not an infinite number, but with 5 ingredients and oh my god!
Yeah, I swap one from 2 to 3 in the order, and then I made a completely different dish.
Would be.
Another thing
So those of you who are compulsive,
good luck.
Obsessively compulsive, forget you heard that.
Well, also, so apparently when you beat the main, I don't think it's really a spoiler, but maybe a minor spoiler. I read somewhere that when you complete the main campaign, you defeat Calamity Ganon, no matter how many hours you're in, and you decide to do it. That will show you the completion of what you've done in the game. And there is guides online to how to get 100%. I might do that after I'm done. But I got to tell you, so, I mean, everything that I didn't like about the game, to me, was a minor thing. And you can make the case that every minor thing adds up to, one big thing. Right. But I think, for me, that's kind of like a detour on, you have really incredible moments in the game. Like, last night I was playing, and I had all these amazing things happen. Like, one... I was on a tower that it was hard to get to, and I finally got to this tower. And I looked out in the distance, and I saw, on top of this really high other peak across from the tower, there was a glowing light. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. The game is very good about, what's over there? Uh-huh. So I had one of those moments. So I got over there. I snuck in. There's a grove on top of this mountain, and there was these ethereal animals having a meeting, all in a circle, with this ethereal steer looking at all of them. And I was sneaking very quietly, looking at everything, and they saw me. So they were like bunnies. They all fled.
Right.
The steer stood there for a couple seconds and looked at me, and then he fled. He went to the rocks, and then he became vapor. Well, he came back. I waited, and he came back, and I was like, oh, maybe I can use him a mount. That would be epic, and I made too much noise. And he went away again. But I was like, what? Like, I'm going to come back here, because what happened was time passes in the game, and then that didn't happen. Like, they all disappeared. So it's like, it's only at like around, because I looked at the clock in game, it's only around midnight that happens. I was there so long, it was like 1 a.m, because every minute it's like 5 minutes or 10 minutes in the game. So I have to go back and see if I can find this mythical animal that like looks amazing. And then another moment I had, which I've seen it before in the game, but I wasn't able to make it over there. There was a glowing shaft of golden light hitting this tree, and I could see it in the distance, and I was like, what is that? So I glided over there, ran up there. It was a shimmering star part. A falling star had hit it, like come down and hit the tree, and you can collect it as an ingredient.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't tell you, obviously, what you use it for. But I was like just so blown away. And then I went in the Lost Woods, which is where you get the Master Sword. But to go into the Lost Woods, there's these braziers set up and these trees that look incredibly menacing. The braziers are lit, and you can follow them, but after a certain time, there's no more braziers. And if you go too much off the beaten path, which it's a maze, you have to figure out which way to go through the trees, everything fades to white, and you go back to the beginning of where the braziers were, where the last set of braziers were. So it took me like 30 minutes to make my way through this without getting reset, and you find the Master Sword, and the little leaf guys, the Karok whatever guys, they're there. It's their home. So they're hanging off the trees. They're happy to see you. They're like, oh, the hero from past, come get the sword. We can't help you until you try to pull the sword from the ground. That's your sword. And then we'll give you a test to make sure you can actually use it. So what happens is, instead of doing, one, there's a temple there, a shrine, so you can fast travel back there, which I immediately was like, I need to find that before I leave, because I don't want to go through the maze again and find my way through. But you go to pull the sword. There's an ancient tree there that says he's been there since time immemorial. He's been watching over Hyrule. For you to grab the sword, you have to be worthy. But he said the sword will take your life if you're not strong enough. So what happens is, when you grab the sword, because I want to see what would happen, you grab the sword and you hold the A button. And while you're doing that, your heart starts depleting. But the sword starts to lift out of the ground. If your heart's deplete before the sword lifts, you die. So he stops you the first time before you're died, and he says, you need to be careful, you need to be worthy. And I was rocking 6 hearts. I thought, why not? Was not worthy. You need more than 6 hearts. And I'm sure you need like 12 or 14. But that was just so cool, because I found my way through the Lost Woods, got to the valley where they were. It was like, it's beautiful and it's picturesque. And even while he's giving his little cutscene of, I've watched Hyrule, time immemorial, you need to be worthy to pick it up. 2 of those little leaf creatures come over, and they have a stick stuck in the ground, and one of them tries to pick it up and like pull it out. And when he says, it could claim your life, he goes, ah, and he pretends to fall over. And they're having this little, they're like, the other one's laughing and stuff. And it's like stuff like that. You're like, I found this place, like I didn't use a guide. I didn't, And the other thing I've purposely been doing is I haven't been buying arrows. So if you look at your quiver, you can see how many arrows you have if you only have like 2 or 3. And I was completing a puzzle where I needed to hit a switch on the other side of the map. So every time I shot it, luckily it would bounce off and go somewhere. And I'm like, I hope I can get that back, because I'm not going to be able to hit that switch if this doesn't work. And
with arrows, what I was trying to do, because I was like, I'm not buying any arrows, is if one of the
bogoblins or whatever
was shooting at me, I would run around, be like, stand there, okay, shooting, run to the side or whatever, and then click the arrows that way.
Yeah, and some of those barrels, they have like 5 stacks. I bought one because there was a mission where you needed to do something for a lady, and she ran an arrow shop. And while I was there, I was like, well, crap, I don't have any, and she wants me to do this, so I bought some when I was there. But what's cool is when you buy stuff, it's gone. Like, it needs to reset, basically. So, like, you really have this thing of like, well, she's only got 10 arrows here. I think she only had 10 arrows, so I'm like, better make these last, until I fight a bokoblin camp. And another amazing thing I got, there's these labs that you find in the game that research the Guardian technology and everything that's fighting you. And the guy says, okay, you got our furnace going, so now we can power our equipment. I'll give you this. And he gives you Guardian arrows. So they're like energy arrows, and he said they're really good against Guardian. He was not joking. A Guardian with legs, usually they're sunk into the ground and they shoot at you. This was fully functional, running after me. I was coming down off a tower. I dodged its laser. You do the thing where if you jump, I don't know if you've done it yet, but if you jump and you go to shoot your bow, time slows down. Yeah, So when you do that, like I did that, time slowed down. I shot him with that arrow. One hit. One arrow destroyed this massive guardian. And I was like, well, I'd be saving these. I got 3 of them. You can buy them from one of the machines in the lab, but they're very expensive. Mm-hmm. So, but it's one of those things where I was like, that's amazing. Like, one hit, you know? Like, I can't believe I destroyed that thing. And like I said, every little nitpick I have about the game, to me, doesn't detract from the other moments where you discover a grove of mythical creatures, or you discover the Lost Woods all by yourself, you know? Or you know, if I have to sit and cook for a while, like, I'm not like, oh, man, this game sucks.
You weren't under time crunch, because I was borrowing the game from you, and so
yeah. Good luck trying to get that out of my hands now. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I'm going to give you it to the week. I'm going to give you 5 days, 3. Hey, nope. I'm going to go pick it up tonight.
1. All right. No, you had yesterday.
Oh, by the way, we're doing a review on this. It's like, okay, and so for me, cooking was really a pain because I was under a time crunch too.
Yeah.
And everything. And
the 10 minutes is the any time that Joe could call. I got 10 minutes to make this.
Because you could really sit down for a half hour.
You could. I did.
Sit around with cooking, taking your time, trying, well, what about this? What about that? And everything. And I was like, okay, I just need to make a couple things because I am like hurt and I'm fixing to go to a battle.
Yeah. Which, by the way, it sucks when you're really hurt and you haven't cooked anything and you're like, I have 4 apples, 3 radishes. Maybe just try to eat these and get a quarter of a heart, and then
I was there.
Yeah, and I've done that, and I was on top of a mountain. I had some cold gear, but you know, the more gear you have, there's 3 pieces every piece of gear. I had 1 piece of cold gear, and the temperature dropped below what I was good to. So I'm on top of a mountain, literally freezing to death, with a guardian trying to find me so it could shoot at me, and it was not a good time whatsoever. So I randomly found I found all 3 pieces of, or 2 pieces of climbing gear, so you climb faster and it doesn't affect your stamina, which saved my bacon. And then I guess I need to find cold gear now because I'm up in the mountains more and more, and I'm like, you know, Link starts shivering and his hearts go away, and you're like, this is not cool, man. This is not cool whatsoever.
Spicy peppers. I need spicy peppers.
Yeah, or maybe eat something for 5 minutes that gives me a whatever. But even then, like, I don't like being on that because you're constantly looking at the clock trying to run around. Like, I can't really explore because I gotta, you know.
Yeah, or I ran to when the brief time I got to be up in the mountains in the very beginning and everything. Was I ate something and then I got stuck in combat and I'm looking around and trying to search stuff, and then it was like, wait a minute, oh my god, I need to eat something, I'm freezing, eat something quick or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, please let me have something.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, like, all the little criticisms that come out of it, like, I don't think it's so big that I don't still think it's a bad game. You know, to me, it's like, yeah, this would be great if it was better. This would be great if it was better. But nothing where I'm like, this totally sucks me out of the immersion.
Of everything, my biggest complaint was the left controller.
Yeah, which they addressed that. They actually went online, wrote a statement. You can mail your controller into them. They will fix it and send it back to you in like a week for free. They said they'll do it for free. So I'm debating whether to do that because I don't have the issue. But if you borrow it again, which will happen, I'll let you borrow it again. But
next year, there will be my full review.
Yeah, in a year, which it'll take probably that long to play the game.
Okay, so in 2 years.
In 2 years, we'll do the review. But, I mean, otherwise, I think it's a great game, and I think all the positive things that have been said about it, I agree with. Even the negative things, I do agree with, but again, it doesn't bother me. Yeah. Reviewers are like, hey, this really pulled me out of the experience. I didn't like the fact there was 110 shrines. You have to use 4 spirit orbs to upgrade a heart or a stamina, which I saw a fully upgraded stamina wheel. I'm working, you have the one you start with, then you have a ring that goes outside, then you have another ring outside of that, then you have another smaller wheel to the left of those, and I don't know, I mean, I'm only doing it in thirds now, so, or that's going to be 4, that's a lot of spirit orbs. So I could see where it's going to be like, oh man, that's so much. But what I'm trying to do is balance between hearts and stamina. I'm not just going, I'm going to go all stamina, you know, like I want to be able to take a hit.
And get your sword.
And get my
master sword.
Yeah, because apparently that's painful when you pull it. You're like, like you just fall over.
You know who's worthy?
What?
Vision.
Yeah, probably. He could just walk in the game, pull it out, like whatever.
He could do it. Come on.
Ganon, who's this Ganon person? Another thing I found out.
Good, an elevator.
Yeah, but if it was, anyway, we can get to that discussion. All right, so the next segment we're going to talk about. Generally, before you stop, you like the game.
Yeah, I liked it. I like sandboxes, like World of Warcraft. You know, you get your missions, whatever, but you're free to go. And the same with I always say World of Warcraft because I spent
that's the most amount of time that you spent.
I did play Skyrim for a bit, and I forgot all about where my mission was because I was doing all the side missions.
Yeah, that happens.
But with World of Warcraft, I would, and I was kind of trying to do it with what little bit of time I had with this, was I like running around and going where people probably don't go.
Yeah.
And find out. Like, in World of Warcraft, when you... so I play the Night Elves, and we come out to the first coastline, and I saw a rock way out there. I swam out there. Yeah. I swam underneath the water, searched around, and I found a treasure chest. And I'm like, I wonder how many people have ever found this treasure chest.
Yeah, and you have there's tons of moments like that in Breath of the Wild where like if you played it, like if I let you borrow it again and you played it for like another 10 or 12 hours, you're gonna have so many different stories than I had. Yeah. Did you go over here? No, just when I came over and watched you, where I glided over to that one plateau and you're like, I just cut a tree down, and I'm like, I know you can do that, but like I didn't have an axe, I didn't think like I was like, oh, I got a glider, I'm gonna use a glider.
You're like. There was one at the beginning. He's like, "Hey, you got to go around and climb." I'm like, "I already did this, but let me show you this." And I had a woodsman axe, and I went around to the tree where there's a chasm between the two cliffs, and I cut the tree down, and it fell right across. And I go, "You just got to be careful because you can't fall off." Yeah. You know how those things are. But instead of spending all this time to try to climb, and you worry about your stamina and everything, I just carefully walked right across, and ta-da! Yeah. And then when I cut one of the trees down, a huge leaf fell down. He's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Let me show you." And I go to a bad guy and I have it equipped. And before he gets to me, I swing it and it knocks him far away. It doesn't really damage him because I didn't hit him, but it causes a gust of wind and knocks them back. And he's like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, and then another thing, really quickly, but when I found the Lost Woods and found the Master Sword, there was Setsu though, and he upgrades your inventory slots. And I was like, oh man, I had all these seeds. I was like, I need this upgraded. So I started upgrading everything. Well, then you get to a tier and he's like, I need 3. I need 3 to upgrade this. And I had like 20. I'm like, yeah, man, sky's the limit. I got cash like you wouldn't believe. And then you get to a tier and he's like, I need 5 now. And I'm like, okay. Oh, yeah, there's like 900 of these in the game. I don't know if I'm ever going to find those. But it appears that I will need to.
That's better than some other games where it's like, you need 200 million. You're like, what?
Man, yeah.
What?
And again, I have the problem in this game that all my characters in all games that I've ever played my whole life is I'm perpetually broke. I've never found that sweet... I haven't found that sweet rupee vein where you're just like, oh yeah, I got millions. Let's do this.
Oh yeah.
Is that only $2,000? I'll get 3 of them. No. Now I'm like, I got like 200 rupees in my name.
It's true. Like in World of Warcraft, his druid was always broke. And my hunter is like, I got like 20 million. What you need me to buy you?
Yeah,
man?
I got like 2,000 gold. What do you have? Is there a cap? I got like 5. This is ridiculous. I'm like, oh, welfare. This sucks.
I always say, man, it's like if I could earn the money I was in World of Warcraft.
I'm on like Azerothian public assistance. It's terrible.
You're a daredevil.
Yeah.
And instead of getting paid in money, you're getting paid in chickens.
That's right.
Like,
it's not right at all.
I pay my bills with chickens.
It's not good at all. All right. So the next minute, we're actually going to talk about Iron Fist. You've seen a lot more of it than I have, but I'll talk about almost. So I'll talk about my impressions, and then you'll talk about your impressions. So we'll do that right after the break. Hey, we're back. So Ben and I are now going to talk about Iron Fist. You've seen more of it than I have.
Yep.
There's been a lot of like mixed things online about how good or bad Iron Fist is. I like it. I enjoy it. I think there's enough of the plot. What they've mentioned of what's going on with the Mitchums. Is it the Mitchums? Oh yeah, Ben's looking up the cast right now.
Yeah, so the Mitchums were the family that
there was 2. The Rand,
right? The Rand is
there was 2. Yeah, there was 2.
So his father and the Mitchums' father were partners, and
founded
the company was Rand, right? And so on the premise is the cast just said on Fest and Randy. I think it's Randy Rand, isn't it?
No, Danny.
Or Danny, right? Sorry, I'm like
Randy Rand.
It would be such a Stanley thing to do, though.
Yeah,
he does like
JJ's.
Yeah. But so Danny and his family were flying over the
Himalayas,
Tibetan or the Himalayas mountains, and their plane crashed.
Yeah.
And so they're all presumed dead.
Mm-hmm.
And And so
he comes back.
He comes back.
It's in the trailer, so it's no spoilers.
He looks like a bum.
He
I
does.
mean, he
well, he is a bum, right? He doesn't have any money.
I mean, he looks like just.
He's got an iPod from.
He almost looks like a beach bum.
Yeah.
And he comes in, and no one believes that he is who he says
Wait,
he is.
because he's supposed to be dead.
Because he was like 10 or so when the plane went down and everything, and he's been gone for 15 years.
Right.
And so the two kids of the Mitchums, they're running the business now.
Right.
And they don't believe he is who they say he is. And so he's trying to convince, and he just wants a minute to talk, and nobody wants to take a minute to talk to him and everything.
But yeah, okay.
And so that's kind of how the
setup
start. The setup on it is him trying to prove who he is. They're not believing him. They're working against him. Like either he's a nutbag. And then it's like, well, if he is who he is, so he can try to seize power. We're fixing to have this huge.
Yeah, because he does still control 41 or 51% of the company. 51%. Yeah, so just enough.
Because his family's name.
Right.
So they had.
That was what the other percent was worth. Apparently, was the RAND name on the building.
That's right.
So, which is a big percent in business. The 51 to 49.
Backstory: Did the Mitchums and the RAND went okay? Rock paper scissors, like gone.
Oh, now
I was like, woo, 51%.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting too. I mean, I do like the show. Like I said, there's enough of the plot. They've mentioned spoilers for Daredevil, but they introduced the Hand in the second season of Daredevil, and that's kind of the villain in this. They've already set it up in the first 2 episodes that the Hand is still in New York. They're kind of doing something nefarious.
Right.
I do people didn't like the fact that I've read reviews where they said the Mitchums were a little bit too soap opera-y, and I will say I got that in moments, but not all the time. I do really like David Wenham, though, the main Mitchum, who's kind of in the shadows, running things.
Harold Mitchum.
Yeah, if people don't know who David Wenham is, he was in Lord of the Rings. He played Faramir. Very good actor. But I really like him in this. He's got a presence about him that you're like, I don't really want to mess with this guy,
Yeah.
His son's kind of a jerk, but he's cast as a jerk, right? He's written as a jerk. But
right, because no one knows that his dad's alive. And this is.
But it's the first. It's a minor in the first spoiler, the first 10 minutes of the pilot of the first episode.
His son knows that he's alive. He's supposed to have died from cancer.
Yeah.
For some believes everyone believes.
And I think that's interesting because I want to know why he's in hiding. Why not just run the company? But he faked that he had cancer and died. So then
he didn't fake he had cancer.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'll reveal that much. Joe's 2 episodes.
I'm only 2 episodes.
I'm 10 or 11.
But for my thing is, I want them to explore that more, and I hope they do.
They do.
Okay.
You find out why everyone thinks he's dead and kind of what's going on. About episode 7 or 8, there was a thing where a big event happened that you weren't really expecting. You kind of see it coming up. It's right when it happens. Is when you're just like, wait. All right, what the heck's going to go on from here now?
Oh, okay, that's
good.
And
then you're like, okay, so this is taken care of. And then it's like a couple episodes later, it's not. And you're just like, what? And so there's some good surprises that come in that you're like really thorough, and it has to do with Harold Mitchum, and his son.
Okay.
And so I've really enjoyed it. So has my girlfriend. We've been kind of thing. Yeah, between that and I just introduced her to Nataro.
Naruto?
So if anyone says Naruto, I hate you.
Okay.
Okay, because that is horrible. It's Naruto. That's what they say. If you watch the Japanese, it is not Naruto. But anyway, we've been kind of bouncing about it. But anyway, we've really enjoyed it. My biggest complaint, I'd have to say, is in the fight scenes in that he's supposed to be the Iron Fist.
Yeah, I've heard that, and I've seen that a little bit.
He's not dominating throughout. There's sometimes he is some, and part of it, as I'm trying to say, is he's also fighting people that should. Some are his equals, some aren't, and so you're kind of used to. If he's fighting kind of mooks, he should be just tearing through them left and right. They're throwing in the air, boom, 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 and then he hits the named character. And so, but the power of the Iron Fist is the more he kind of gets hit, the more he can kind of generate his chi. And so
he said it helps him focus.
Right, and it allows him to generate that force into it, literally into his fist. You'll see them start to glow and everything.
Which was cool. They showed a little bit of that from what I've seen, and I was like, I want to see more of that.
Right, and so and so when it comes to some of the fight stuff, it's been, I expected him to be more proficient, more dominating.
So you mean the actor or the character?
The character.
Okay.
To be more dominating and more in control, not getting like his butt handed to him. It almost reminds me. So I've been watching the Supergirl series on TV.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, for being the strongest person on Earth, you sure do take a lot of beating.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone's always stronger than the second strongest person on the, or
yeah,
whatever.
That's one of my complaints with the show is like I don't think that actor is a bad actor, but I think he says to someone flat out in like the second episode, "I am the Iron Fist."
Yeah,
that should be a moment where you're like, he is. You should believe that. And the moment he said it, I was like, well.
Well, the thing, and this is the thing I kind of like a bit like about it and everything, and maybe this is where some people has claimed, is the actor is still. He's probably, I think, like 25. The character should be like 20, right around 25.
Yeah, he's probably about the same age as
mid
the
20.
character.
I think he was about 10. He was about 10 to 12 when the plane went down. 15 years later, so he's in his mid, just into his late 20s. That event that happened to him is very much affecting him throughout the show.
Right.
And that his family's name means it's like everything to him.
Well, he saw
the trauma that he had from the plane crashing, watching his mom get sucked out of the plane,
right.
All that really weighs. So even though he's the Iron Fist, and if you look at how, as you watch more, so you still see very much that he's still this 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And he lived in a monastery. He's not really had the real world. He really hasn't experienced all the gray in life and in the world and everything. And so he's having to adjust to it. Everything for him has been black and white. And now he's being introduced to grays. Very
New York.
grays.
I mean, really, New York.
Just even the people he's around.
Well, again, I should say.
And so that's one of the things I really like. That I don't know if because I haven't read any of the reviews. I've just kind of heard that readers been make some people. But that's one thing I like. Is you kind of see that. Yeah, he's the Iron Fist, but he still has a lot of maturing and growing.
Yeah.
And that these events in his past he hasn't really dealt with. That he really needed like counseling.
Yeah.
And so forth.
I get that. My big complaint again is I just don't. So okay, me being a viewer, when he says I'm the Iron Fist, I don't really buy it. Let's just say I don't buy it. I don't right now. I'm only 2 episodes in. I'm intrigued, but I don't buy it.
Right.
But then, I mean, there's only a few fight scenes I've seen so far in the second episode. But those fight scenes to me just didn't do it where it kind of like, okay, maybe he is the Iron Fist, But to me, they were just really weak. And you're like, you're a living weapon, And he says that again to somebody, like, I'm a living weapon, I'm the Iron Fist.
Right.
And apparently somebody says later on, they said for him to get his abilities, he had to fight an ancient dragon to get the Iron Fist. Mm-hmm. So, like, when he says that, like, I'm the Iron Fist and I don't buy it, like, that's a problem, And then if the fight scenes don't improve with him and you're like, this kind of looks like, because, there's a difference between someone who can physically do things and act, and it seems like they really went after his acting ability, which is fine, but like they had to be like, as well as like, hey, you also are going to do some rigorous fight training, like you have to be the living weapon,
Yeah.
And if that doesn't improve, that's really going to tear me out of the show.
For me, him going, well, I'm saying I'm this. It hadn't bothered me because like I said, I still see him. He still has a bit of a preteen attitude.
He's not mature yet.
I mean, yeah. If you look at how his character is a lot, and you watch, he still hasn't. He's an adult and by age and everything else, but mentally, he never got past 10 or 12 a bit because, like I said, that the trauma of it. It keeps popping up his head. Mm-hmm. It keeps
they do even in a few episodes. They show that.
And so that's a major factor. And he's living off of the idea of what he knew of his dad. Right. And his dad, and so his family name means a lot to him. And it's like he doesn't want to taint it or whatever. And he's like, "That's my name." There's a scene later on about where
his family
comes about his
what's
name.
really going on with his family, probably
with his family, but about his name. I don't want to get into it. And it reinforces his family name. His name, it means a lot.
Means something.
And so he's coming into this world where everything was if it's what you say it is, it's what you say it is.
Yeah.
And there's no like kind of hidden speech or whatever. Now you're in New York and you're dealing with people who are business people, corporate, not in person. And how good and honest Rancor is now is a little fuzzy because and that gets run and he has issues with that. I mean he's very good-hearted. Like most people would call it a bleeding heart liberal. It's like, well, this is wrong. We need to fix it. This needs to be like this, and not that necessarily he's wrong. And so that's the thing that I've kindly operated on is even though he's an adult, he hasn't had life experiences to have him mature mentally and emotionally as an adult. All he's known is I wanted to be the Iron Fist. I wanted to be the Iron Fist, regardless of when anyone
or
said,
you are
I
the Iron
be
Fist. Now you have to live up to it, basically,
and everything. And so when it comes to the fight scenes, my big swing is sometimes he gets owned a lot more than
he should.
You think he should. And some is you're like, okay, well this is another. There's one scene in the past episode 2 that I watched where he actually fought someone doing drunken boxing. I was so excited because I love drunken boxing. If I could learn drunken boxing, I would love to.
We'll just be like Jackie Chan, drink a bunch, and have your ancient Chinese master fight you.
Right, so he's going against a style that's not a straightforward martial arts style on him. And he has difficulty with it through most of the fight scene. And it's like, I love that because, it's something that's very unorthodox, and he's used to very orthodox fighting.
You could also bring up the point, though, that if he really has been, let's say he was gone for 15 years, let's say 10 of that was training, to be the Iron Fist, he probably would have come across drunken boxing. You know what I mean? Like,
not necessarily.
Well, my thing is like if...
I mean, because drunken boxing is not a very front common...
Right, but...
It's out there and everything, but because the way the drunken boxing style is very...
Right, no,
you think you're fixing... They're weaving, but they're you think they're going this way, but they go this way, and stuff that... How they use stuff for weapons and everything.
Well, I mean...
And he eventually adapts.
Well, I'm hoping that the fight scenes improve, because to me, that's the one thing where I do find... I mean, people have said he's... the plot's bad and all this, the characters. I don't find that to be true. Yeah. Like I said, all the little plot things that they've kind of dangled out just in the first couple episodes, I'm like, that's interesting. I want to see where this goes. I want to see where that goes.
For me, has continually kept me intrigued and everything.
But the moment he has to fight, and you're like, that looked like they needed to do another take, or like he's kind of like,
that would be, like I said, my only complaint is I would expect him to dish out a little bit more than he takes.
And I did like the scene, though.
He takes a lot.
I did like the scene. They do kind of show off his Iron Fist ability. His hand starts glowing, and somebody tries to stop him, and you think it's going to be this big, and all he does is push the guy off to the side, and I love that. Like, I'm not wasting, there's no reason to waste all of this on you, type thing.
Yeah.
And another thing, and not just for this show that I have a problem with, but most of the Marvel TV things. So, like, they mentioned in, I think it was Jessica Jones, or Daredevil, one of the shows, they mentioned about the event in New York.
Right.
So the first Avengers movie. So aliens, the Chitauri came from the sky, the Avengers showed up, kicked their butt, portal closed.
Right.
It's a pretty amazing thing to happen. You see some guy turn into the Hulk, you figure out there's a guy in a flying suit of armor, basically, and Thor can control lightning. That's pretty amazing. But I think in Jessica Jones, they have the Purple Man, Kilgrave, and they go, what? He can make you control, he can make you do whatever he wants with his mind? That's unbelievable. And you're like, well,
But you gotta remember, too, that how, like a lot of humans, when they have trouble sometimes understanding or accepting Trump supporters and Hillary supporters, I'm sorry, a little cough there.
You have a cough a lot.
Yeah, and so they won't acknowledge it.
Right.
And so that's how a lot of people, and even though and even though they're like, okay, I can take this, I'll take this, but now you're talking about mental power. Well, no. Okay, there's a line.
In his defense, he does mention that, but they haven't really introduced Strange to like the street level stuff. Strange is still in his sanctum, probably studying. I don't know the timeline, but what really bugs me is there's just a scene in the first episode where he jumps over that cab. He's talking to an old friend. She doesn't believe him. He jumps over the cab to defend himself because the car's like barreling down the road.
Right.
After the things that people have physically seen, because there was footage of the Avengers like kicking, she's like blown away that he can jump over a cab.
But you're taking it out of the context of the scene. You're taking someone that she thinks is a bum who's trying to say that he's someone that she's like, no, you're dead.
Okay.
And sees
I see
that.
what you're saying.
See, you got it.
Well, my thing
and
is
I
like,
understand it's how commonplace is that? That's it. You're expecting only those group of Avengers, those 6 or 7, the Avengers.
Right, yeah.
That's it. That's who you think has that
That
ability.
is true because
and then when you're right in front of someone that's fixing to get hit in a taxi who looks like a bum, and they do it, you're caught off guard.
Well, too, like, because didn't Jessica Jones make a point of that like she knows of people that are out there but hasn't said anything and like had files on them? Remember, like there was a scene or something where
something like, but that's because she's kind of in that most.
Right, there's still
99.9% of people aren't in that world.
Right.
And so these are still.
Well, some of it too is I would like to see a timeline of how it falls out within the rest of the universe, because I could be assuming that people know that, but they don't.
But let me put it this way. So you can watch movies with car accidents. You can watch the live news, and they'll have someone that showed an accident. Accident happens right in front of you. How do you act? Oh my God!
Yeah.
So you're talking. You got to look at it in that way. She's right in the middle. It's right in front of. This isn't on TV.
Well,
this isn't downtown.
Yeah, but again, point, and this is a real world point. We all kind of talked about terrorism, but when you saw 9/11 and saw the news, and now everybody's talking about it. Everybody's talking about terrorism. What do we do about terrorism? Just to keep this without politics. So after that event in New York, again, this is maybe just me wanting to see a timeline. Maybe the registration thing hasn't happened yet. Maybe that's a different far off in the timeline. So you think that would be on the news? Like, we need to start rounding these people up, or at least knowing where they are? Like, but
still, when an event happens across the world or on the other side of the city versus right in front of you.
Well, again,
terrorists, we were all, when 9/11 happened and someone told you, hey, turn on the TV and you watch the plane hit in. That's a horrifying event. Now imagine if you were actually in New York City watching that
the building
live right there.
Well,
then your emotions even different. Because you're not safe a distance away. You're right there.
Well, I think maybe for me, because the shows haven't really addressed it, I do want just a detective or somebody who's like investigating something to go, well.
But they've said they even said when they've started the MCU on Netflix is kind of tied, but they're not going to. It's not like Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is directly back and forth. That's why they don't directly say anything. Is even though it's part of the universe, it kind of isn't, and so they're keeping it as
which I didn't
and separated. And this isn't up in main town where all this was happening.
Street level
this
stuff.
is in the Bronx and the scum or I don't know,
Hell's Kitchen,
but in the rough areas, in the poor areas. That even though all that happened across town. What happens across town, that was horrible. We're in New York. But this is happening right in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's always the different emotion of disconnection is atrocity happened in Europe. That's horrible.
Yeah.
Atrocity happened in New York. Oh my God. Atrocity happened right across my street. Oh my freaking God. Am I in danger? What's happened? I don't know what's going on. Yeah. Someone tell me. And the closer it is to you, the more it's become real. Yeah. Because even if it happened, if we had something happen in Federal Way, oh my God, that's horrible. Which is a city, like 2 cities up from us. And all these cities, up around, it's like city. So everything's across. It's not like 3 hours. It's like, hey, 20 minutes, I'm in
whatever you think about Washington, there's actually, we're about to run out of time. So, I mean, I'm intrigued to watch more.
Yeah. I've enjoyed the characters. I've enjoyed all the little nuances. Like I said, my biggest complaint so far has been I think the Iron Fist should be able to handle himself a little bit more, and I hope that does happen where martial art wise is because it seems like Daredevil can handle himself better in a fight.
Yeah, so that's a bad thing. But we'll talk about this next week after we both watch more. So see you then.
Back. Yeah, that was crazy. It's crazy to hear Ben's voice and to hear him give it his impressions of the, just the Breath of the Wild. Sorry, I just needed a minute. I just heard Ben's voice. It was crazy. So yeah, I guess now I'm going to give, I'm not even going to say final impressions. How do I want to put this? I'm still going to play Breath of the Wild. I'm not going to stop. But I think, If you're out there and you haven't played it, maybe you've been reading about it and you think to yourself, I don't understand. It's been since March 3rd, 2017. Why do people continue to talk about this game? Please shut up. And I would just say I respectfully disagree. Very few games have kind of this open sense of wonder that I get when I play Breath of the Wild. Again, I've talked previously about what my favorite game is. I think it's still Crystallis. That's my favorite game. But I think, there's objective lists about top 10 games ever made and all that thing. Breath of the Wild has to be in that conversation. I think it's got to be as it stands generationally, probably the best game of all time right now. Again, you're going to look back in 20 years and go, well, it didn't do this or it didn't do X. And I'll tell you a simple reason why. When you go into a tower, like many games that a tower system and has an unlock system where you maybe go to a region, you climb up a watchtower, and that watchtower unlocks a part of the map. Usually, I'm just thinking of Ubisoft games because they're the people that use that the most. When you go to a tower and unlock something, immediately after you unlock it, what happens is the map is just smattered with check marks and quest markers and money signs for loot, side quest objectives, bounty missions, like all this stuff just litters the screen, and it's so busy. What Breath of the Wild does, when you go to a tower and you unlock a section, you just see the terrain. And you think, well, that's boring. Well, here's the deal. One of the things I didn't mention in the bonus session, and I was going to save till now, is one of the main technical designers said, what I hope people really see is that everybody can approach this game differently. When you wake up in the beginning of the game, you wake up in the Shrine of Resurrection because, well, story reasons. I'm not going to spoil it because I really want there to be a sense of wonderment, but I am going to do some specific things to spoil just to show you kind of like how great this game is. So you wake up in the Shrine of Resurrection and you run out and you're immediately greeted with this massive vista of the Great Plateau. You see grassy plains. You can see Hyrule Castle in the background. And you go, and there's an old man by a fire. He's in a robe, and he says, well, the towers around here, if you activate them, you can see farther on, and you're kind of up on a cliff, and you'll die if you just jump off the cliff. So what you have to do is activate these towers. Of course, I'm paraphrasing all this. So you activate these 4 towers, and that basically takes something called the Sheikah Slate, which I mentioned before, and gives it the ability to give you different things, like the ability to use magnesis, like I mentioned before, or bombs, or cryonesis, or I'm trying to think what the other. Oh, there's a time one. I don't think they call it timenesis, whatever they call it. That escaped me, but these basically give you the tools. So no longer in the game do you have to go find the hook shot. You don't have to go find the dual hook shot. I know I said hook shot twice, but the idea is when you get to these towers, it doesn't show you like, oh, okay, I'm going to go over there. There's going to be something. The technical designer, when he was talking about it in the bonus section, he said, I want people to approach this game in many different ways. When you leave the Shrine of Resurrection, if you know where to go, you can beat Ganon then. You can go right towards a boss fight and go beat Ganon. People have done it online. I think it's taken about an hour. Someone might have it down to about, 40 minutes, 47 minutes. It's very difficult, but you can do it. That's kind of unprecedented in a Zelda game because Zelda games are very linear. Go to this shrine, get this weapon so you can go back to this shrine. Go to this shrine so you go to this temple, whatever. So what they've done is there's been some criticism in the game because let me get to my first point. So you can do that. Or, as a technical designer said, we want everybody to find something interesting no matter where they are. So whether you're looking off in a distance, you might see a glint of light. The shrines in the game before you beat them usually come up out of the ground, or they glow orange. So you could be looking in a tundra and you see just a little glint of orange off in the distance and you're like, hey, what's that? I'm going to go check that out. Then you get over there and there's a bogoblin camp, which again, you can use the physics systems. You can move a barrel through force, launch at them like a rocket. It'll explode because they have a fire there and you'll kill all the bogoblins. Really cool. Or you can go in the shrine and go, oh man, this is cool. So instead of, again, there's been criticism of the game because they've gotten rid of the temples. There's no fire temple anymore. There's no water temple. But what they've done is they've got this idea of the divine beasts, which are these kind of Sheikah technology, massive, basically mechs that the champions of Hyrule. There's 4, one from each race. From the Zora, there's Mifa. She has a elephant that you go in the water domain and you fight, and it's a massive thing. It's basically like a temple, and it's basically in a water area. There's some water themes. There's flooding. You fight a boss at the end. This malice that has infected the divine beast that basically takes a water shape. So if you have fire arrows, obviously that does damage. But you can tilt the divine beast 90 degrees. So like the whole cylinder would change. Everything that was on the ceiling is now on the ground or whatever. It is a puzzle and it is a temple. And I actually appreciate them doing stuff like that to mix it up. Now, they do that with each divine beast. The water one is the Zora people. There's the sand one, which I don't know what element that would be. It's lightning. But you go to Gerudo with the Gerudos. They're like a desert people. You go there and you fight that beast. And same thing, you fight an electrical thing at the end. You go to the Gorons, which are the big... they're the Garuk. The Gorons. Garuk is the guy. The champion. Umbursu is the Umburso. I don't know if I'm saying her name right. Probably should have written it down. Anyway, all I'm getting to the fact is every time you go somewhere in Breath of the Wild, there's this amazing sense of exploration. It has nothing to do with combat. It purposely points you in a direction to the next interesting thing. And it gives you enough tools to not only go find that interesting thing, right from the bat. Again, you do the tutorial to open the towers, which takes 30 minutes. And then they give you something called a parasail, which you've seen in like Wind Waker. He uses a sheet in that, and you can float. So you can literally climb anything in the game. There's only like one section you can't climb. 1 or 2. I think the Sheikah technology you can't climb, and there's one cliff that is literally the northern edge of the map, and you can't climb that. You run out of stamina. Other than that, you can climb anything. So what I'm trying to say is you can go up to the top of a mountain and go, how do I get down to that valley? Oh yeah, I can just jump. You have a parasail and you sail down. Now it does burn stamina, but what I do is I kind of stop my fall and then I free fall and then use it like a parachute at the last minute and pop it down and then just float down to the ground. Or you can shield surf. That's right. I said shield surfing. You time it correct. You actually have a guy that's trying to break a record you find on a hill. He's like, I'm trying to beat my record, do shield surfing. And he teaches you how to throw the shield like Legolas in the 2 towers and throw your shield down and glide. You can even grab a monster in the desert. I say monster, it's like a big walrus in the desert area and surf with him like a wind sail. He goes forward, you throw a rope on him, you throw your shield down, and you surf like crazy. You can even see it in the trailer that they released in January of 2017. There's a small scene of you... not windsurfing, but basically sand surfing with this walrus creature. It's amazing. Also, one of the things I didn't mention is that they really wanted, I kind of did, I guess. One of the documentary things, they really wanted people to interact with the environment, not only like fire and stuff like that, but they said, what about lightning? Oh yeah, if you're holding metal weapons, you're going to get struck by lightning. But there's a rubber suit you can wear so you don't get struck by lightning. Or you can use wood weapons so you're not conductive. Or when lightning hits down, you can throw a metal weapon down. The lightning hits the metal weapons. All the enemies around you are shocked or killed. It's things like that where they're constantly pushing you forward to use tools and have some form of exploration that just doesn't make you stop. In fact, when I got done researching all this, I already beat Ganon. It was a good fight. It was incredibly climactic. The ending scene was amazing. But what I thought was great about it was I got done playing and I was like, okay, I got to do the research for the podcast. I finally beat it. I have these couple sections. I should watch these documentaries. I had the interview with Joseph Johnson, Ben's half brother. I had the interview with him. So I was trying to squeeze all this in. I had to work Saturday, so that kind of took away the time. But immediately when I started researching all this and saw these people talk about the game, the developers and the documentaries, I immediately wanted to start going back and play the game again. There's so many things to explore. Probably like a week ago, I believe it was GameSpot released a video on YouTube saying things you still don't know about Breath of the Wild. That blows me away. I know a lot of games will come out and be like, hey, nobody found this one Easter egg that the developers locked down in 20 years. In Breath of the Wild, there's literally videos out there that say, here's 100 things you didn't know about Breath of the Wild. If you take a rusted weapon and throw it in an Octorok, you know those things from the first games that would be in water and they'd shoot at you? If you time it right and an Octorok is out of the water shooting something at you, if you throw a rusted weapon at him, because you can throw your weapons in this game. He catches it, he will spit back your weapon, and he cleans off all the rust on it. So now you just have a brand new weapon that is no longer rusted and broken. That is the kind of stuff that they took in Breath of the Wild. There's a video with 101 things like that you had no idea would work in the game, or things you can try. People are constantly putting videos online that speedrun shrines, where they use the time thing, where they'll freeze time in a place, hit it a bunch so it builds up force, and then when the time runs out, they get launched across the shrine. That kind of stuff is amazing to me. And there's a lot of talk about what Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be. If it's going to be more of the same. There's a trailer out there from an E3 presentation like in 2019. A lot of people think it's going to be underground. So you're basically using the same map, but you'll be underground exploring the caves there, because Ganon is an undefeatable evil that keeps coming back. It looks like in the trailer that they released that he is trying to come back, so probably you and Zelda will try to beat him. I am looking forward to it quite a bit. Side note, when I bought this game originally and bought the Switch, I was really excited to play Breath of the Wild. I saw a trick where you pull I probably told the story, but I'm going to tell it again. You pull the sticker off the back for a gift card. So instead of scratching it away with the coin or something, you rip it off and you see the whole symbol. Well, I screwed up. And when I did it, that's right, it ripped off the number. So I ended up spending an extra $50 to play Breath of the Wild. And I don't regret it. In fact, there's DLC for $20, I think. And I'm seriously considering getting it, because there's a cool Easter egg and a cool vehicle you get in the end of it. A new horse. I don't know why I said vehicle. It's a horse. But anyway, that is, I guess, not even my final review. What am I trying to say to sum all this up? Breath of the Wild, again, has a sense of exploration that I don't really think any game has. And it's really hard to quantify it. Of course, I've tried in this review. The idea that the designers want to push you forward to keep looking around and poking around, and they want something interesting around every corner. And in my opinion, they've succeeded. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be hyperbolic and say, and I just did, I said, yeah, it's like the greatest game ever made. I don't think it's something where I'm like, all other games suck. This game is the best. I think this game is amazing and a testament to the designers that worked really hard. And like I mentioned before, it took a week off to play the game so they could get perspective on it. But what I think is amazing about this game is, when I play other games now, I just think of Breath of the Wild. You know, we play Skyrim, and it's fun. But when I was climbing the throat of the world, I kept having to kind of cheese the environment. Oh, if I move here, I could do this. Oh, if I move here, oh, I got up a little bit here. Oh, I got up a little bit here. Oh, I got up a little bit here. That's annoying. In Breath of the Wild, if you see a mountain, you're like, yeah, I'm going to go climb that. In fact, when I log out of this, I might play a little bit just to relax. I got some reviews coming up for the podcast, but I want to kind of take it easy today. Like I said, I had to work yesterday. But what I might do is, you can get a climbing set in the game, and you can upgrade it so you climb faster. And you don't use as much stamina when you climb. So it's like, hey. So what I might do is go for that and just start climbing around. The verticality of that game is amazing. It's one of those things they really did sit and think, well, what if this does this? Well, what if we catch this area on fire? Great. Well, it's going to cause an updraft. Okay. What if I pull my parasail out? Well, then you get shot in the air. Cool. Well, if you're in the air and you pull out your bow, time slows down so you get a perfect shot on somebody. Great. What about this? What about that? They've all thought of that kind of stuff. Everything in the game works as it should. And I think that's a testament. You know, in a game, when you try something, you find something out really cool, and you're like, oh man, did you know if you do this and this, then this will happen? That's what Breath of the Wild does in every moment of the game. Well, what if I do this? What if I do that? They showed a scene in the behind-the-scenes documentary, so I'm not ruining it because I actually put it out there. The physics that work with things when you move them around works with objects in the world in combat as well. So the bokoblins will start throwing rocks at you. If you have a club, you can knock the rocks back like a baseball player and hit the bokoblins and kill them. That is amazing. Or, I don't know. Sometimes you might find a really crazy horse in the world. And I mean crazy, I don't want to spoil anything. But you find a crazy horse and you go to the stables because you have to register your animals. And you go, hey, I want to register this crazy horse. And the people will be like, that is not a horse. That is an undead skeletal horse. Where did I find the skeletal horse? Can't really say. But the stable won't take it. It's things like that where they go, hey, if we give this person the skeletal horse, give Link the skeletal horse, they're going to try to take it to the stables. Well, what do the stable masters do? They're going to freak out and say, well, you know, because the way the undead work in the game, when the sun comes up, everything dissolves. Bones fall apart and stuff like that. So you're not going to have the skeletal horse too long. But it's stuff like that completely surprised me out the game. And more that I play it, especially taking a break from it like I did for a year and then coming back, those things still hold up and they still work and they still blow me away when I'm like, whoa, do you know blah, blah, blah? Yeah, it's one of those. So, yeah. I don't know. I don't know how much more I can ramble on or how much more I'm not vamping. I'm really telling my opinion, but I think Breath of the Wild is one of the greatest games ever made. Is it my favorite game? Got to be in the top 10. And maybe when I play it more, I'll have a better understanding of that. So in conclusion, I just want to say thanks for being on this incredibly long podcast. I think this is the longest podcast I've ever done. But I was blown away when I found Ben and I's early reviews of Breath of the Wild. And I wanted to put that up there because, like I said, next week we're going to talk about Ben, my brother and he. So that way you guys can hear Ben's voice and have a little bit of glimpse into what Ben was like before we actually talk about him. So I guess that's it, guys. Go play Breath of the Wild. Write into me. Let me know what you think. This podcast will hit my website, www.gamewithgrief.com, Monday morning at 7 a.m. Go there, leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the podcast. Or you can go to GWG Podfellows and leave me an email. Let me know what you think. Let me know how I can improve. You can go to iTunes. Go there, leave me stars, likes, that kind of stuff. Let me know, again, how I can improve. I'm not one of those people that's going to beg for stars. If you think it's worth 3 stars, tell me it's worth 3 stars. Tell me how I suck. I'm also on the Google Play Store, so if you have an Android device, you can find me there. Also, go to Twitter and find me at JustLittleJoe. I'm there. I will put out a link for this Monday morning. I'm actually pretty proud of this. So this episode, how it all turned out, the research, how everything kind of came to be. And now I can stop talking about Breath of the Wild. I'm kidding. I'm going to talk about it a lot. Anyway, find me on Twitter at JustLittleJoe. And I think that's it, guys. So stay safe. Hug your family if you can. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.